This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast at talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone, welcome back to Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
I'm Stephen.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Paul.
Episode 76, and for once we don't have any bad news, or do we?
Don't have any good news.
Spoilers.
There's some. It's been a really quiet week for Star Wars this week, and having to do a daily podcast means I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel to find things to talk about.
Well, you can't go supernova one week and then be supernova the week after. So.
No,
yeah,
we don't.
You know what the solution is? Don't do a daily podcast and then complain that there's nothing to talk about.
No,
yeah, when your real stars are online.
That is not an option.
You're putting VIPs first.
I think it is.
Oh, hang on a minute.
I think it's absolutely an option. I think just because it's not one you want to do doesn't mean it's not an option.
Yes, well that's true.
If I was an
myself.
economy listener, Mark.
Yes,
I think that's a little bit of a jump there, Mark. I think you've extrapolated rather wildly from what I said.
It is an option.
Listeners can make their own mind up. That's fine.
If I was an economy reader, could I use air miles to upgrade to a VIP just for one flight?
No.
Damn. All right.
Any more?
Can I pay for Steve?
Deep out of left wings. Yes, Steve, you're already a VIP. What are you talking about?
I know. I just wanted to play the poor
Buffoon?
card. I get it for nothing. I don't even pay anything.
Violin.
Yeah.
Hang on, what? Steve doesn't pay?
Tiny violin.
Well,
okay, right. Before we get started,
I give a lot, Rob.
Oh, Stephen.
I give my soul.
You give you what? Sorry.
I give my clothes.
Oh.
That is very, very true. All right, before we get started this week, we just need to remind everybody that you can leave reviews for us on iTunes, although no one has for a couple of weeks. It's been very, very quiet. Rob, you haven't had anything, have you, while you've been unwell?
No, it's been quiet on the Talk Star Wars front. The Commonwealth's had a few.
Have they? Oh, that's good news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good for them. Yeah.
Not bitter in the slightest. Good.
Not
Well, carry on.
I don't get that. We're better than them.
I'm being sincere.
So this tribalism, Paul, it's very not becoming.
Conduct unbecoming.
Over what?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Are they part of the Commonwealth?
Yeah, they're another show.
Conduct unbecoming is my new venture. It's like if you thought After Darkseid was tame.
Paul is unbecoming thusly.
Yeah. I was listening to the last roundtable this week.
To that today.
That was really good. Adam and
I bet you'd
Kate
say
were
that. You're on it.
Yeah, I was the weakest part.
It had it had a certain something about it from having the main man on there.
Yeah, Mr. Talk Star Wars.
But Luke.
Yeah, Corey, right? Drop rules with a Z.
Oh, yeah, he's brilliant.
I love Corey.
He was a lot
I love
of fun.
them all.
Yeah,
love them all.
They were great. Okay, right. Listener comms this week. We don't really have much because I did want to throw out a little discussion topic at the end this evening about something relating to all the bad news that's come out of Star Wars in the past couple of weeks with Lord and Miller leaving. So we'll get to that at the end of the episode and kick that around for a little while. But fortunately, we did have a couple of emails from around the VIP group, and we've got a voicemail. We're going to start off with a voicemail from Marc Airy. So Mark does the TSW Toy Box Daily podcast for us, and he's Rob's co-host on the Toy Box.
Never heard of it.
It's a good show. You should check it out if you're not on it, which you are.
How's it compared to comics?
TSW Comics. Well, there's always late being recorded. What's up, Paul?
No, just saying, Rob, if you do a daily podcast, do you run out of things to say when it comes to the important show?
I never have that problem, Paul. I don't do a daily podcast.
Actually, no, I can believe that.
Yeah, I don't have that problem. And also, not to be fair, the trick is shutting me up.
Yeah, no, I know.
You've never noticed.
Decoded at last. If you want to get something on the listener com section of the show every week, you can send your questions and comments via Twitter or Facebook to us, or you can email or send an MP3 as a voicemail, talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com, which is what Mr. Airy did this week. Did I even do a breakdown? Yes, I did. That's good. Right, here we go.
On an M4A?
No, you can't. This is
MKB?
This is Mark's question for this week.
Hello boys, Marc here from the TSW Toy Box. So, as you know, I enjoy a good what if. I even watched Sliding Doors the other day. What a waste of time that was. But I digress.
So did I.
So, what if Obi-Wan had told Luke that Vader was his father from the beginning, when there was in the hut? Would Luke have tried to talk to Vader more? Or not tried to kill him on Bespin? It would have been Luke, not Han, saying, I know, in Empire. Don't you just love tangents? Have at it, and have a great show, guys.
Yeah, we do the odd tangent, don't we, ourselves? So.
Built my podcasting career around tangents. I'm a massive fan.
So how would
What do you
Star
think
Wars...
of road cones?
I really was concerned
Can't
about
get me
where you were going with that.
I really hope Luke would not be the one saying, I know. Got to be honest there.
Yeah,
that'd be
that would be
a bit
disturbing.
That would have been a bit litty, yeah, to say the least.
Jedi would be uncomfortable.
How would Star Wars be different if
the
Luke
other one you
knew
spoke
that?
of is your twin sister? Oh no! Oh no!
Do you mean my twin pregnant sister?
That's disturbing.
There was nothing to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
You know what would have happened? I just think the scene with Luke in Jedi on the unfinished Death Star, it would have been a movie and a half long. Not that one scene, but that whole effort to turn his dad round and blah, 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 blah.
On Death Star 2?
Yeah, so the scene where he's like, I'm not going to fight your father and all this kind of stuff. And there is still good in him and all that kind of malarkey. That would have just dragged on through Empire and halfway through Jedi.
So there would have been no
a very
conflict.
long. Yeah, it would have been a very long, still the conflict and so on, but it would have been a very long sort of, come back to me dad session, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Steve?
What would have happened? I think it would have made more sense as a movie, because it obviously was only supposed to be a single one at the beginning. I think it would have. I don't think anything would have transpired differently, but I think it would have possibly linked the films together slightly better. Although it wasn't badly done, but I don't think much would have changed. I don't think he was trying. Sorry, Paul. Hang on. Interject in a sec. I was just going to say I don't think he would have tried. He tried to kill his dad anyway. On Bespin, I didn't feel that he was trying to kill him, even though
he just knew he had to face him.
Yeah, even though he'd killed Ben and he thought he wasn't his father, he had good reason to kill him then. I don't think he was trying to kill him. I think he was trying to face him and trying to understand him a bit, but not necessarily to kill him. Go on, Paul, sorry.
The real question, sorry to diss Marc in any way, but the real question is whether Vader knew that Luke knew, not just Luke knowing.
That's very interesting.
I know.
As in,
that's me all over.
Would Vader have known that Luke knew?
So if they both had known that early, that would have been...
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah, he probably would have sensed it, wouldn't he?
Well, we don't know how. I mean, we know in the comic books, we don't know how in the movies. We're not sure how Vader learns of Luke's identity in Empire.
In the comics?
Yeah, we find that's what I say. But in the movies, we don't know, do we? So we never really learn how Vader discovers Luke's identity. So, like, Vader's position on Luke is a very difficult one to read.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Because it's that whole exchange between him and Palpatine where they sort of call each other out on Luke's presence and the fact that he's Anakin's kid. It's all a bit shady, isn't it, in the movies? Mm. It's not very well laid out. But with Luke, I can't see him. I think if Obi-Wan had told him at the start, I can't see him going down the same path he went. Because I think he went after Vader because of what he represented. And if he'd known him was his father, we'd have seen, like Paul said, we'd have seen those colours in Luke come out much earlier. And we wouldn't have had the conflict that we had at the end of Empire, if you know what I mean. Because, like, Luke was thrown off balance by Vader's reveal big time.
Yeah.
And if he'd have gone into that battle armed with the knowledge, I think he might have been weaker for it.
Okay.
He'd have had that desire to save Anakin the way he did in Jedi. He'd have had that when he turned up on Bespin, and it just wouldn't have played out the same way at all. If he'd gone in
I see what you're saying.
with an ulterior, with a different agenda. He did go in there to end Vader, I think, even though he was out of his depth. But it would be it would have been an interesting. It would have been. I think it will be
addressed again once they remake it all. No, it will. It's bound to be remade at some point, and somebody will say, "Right, we're getting rid of the 600 errors in A New Hope. We're getting rid of the 900 errors in this," and it will be a really, really awesome, like unquestionably the best.
Oh, thankfully you're breaking up, Steve. Let's move on to.
All right, okay, we're moving on, are we?
Sorry, Steve, we lost you there, mate. What was you saying?
Did you really lose me?
You broke up there, yeah. Because your internet's made out of Lego bricks. No, you're gone again. Rob, let's come to you, and if Steve ever gets his internet connectivity back, we'll go back to him.
Yeah, all right. I think what might have been cool is to have the turn to the Vader turn to the light resolved earlier. Shut your face. Resolved earlier, and to have them both fighting a much more powerful Emperor and Jedi.
Oh,
might have been cool. Because actually, we saw. Oh, shut your face! It's opinions.
No,
I'm not having this.
They're subjective, and I don't like yours.
That is Paul's opinion.
Your face. Shut it. Anyway, saying, I would have liked to see more from the Emperor, because we know he's super powerful, because obviously he's manipulated an entire galaxy into his evil. We don't learn that until episode. It doesn't really culminate until episode 3. So we don't really get the full extent of his powers and abilities and competencies until then. So it would have been nice to see a much more powerful version in episode 6.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Feel free to like or dislike it.
We might not have needed to have seen
as easy or want.
We might have got that. We might have got that Palpatine in Jedi that we saw in Revenge of the Sith. Yes, if that was the case.
Yeah, more of a, more akin to that.
Would have been cool. Luke facing Vader early, being very, very, very naive, and being sort of encompassed and entrapped by the Emperor, and then realizing, hang on a minute, this is the wrong path for me, and defeating the Emperor that way might have been kind of cool.
I'd like to see Vader coming good and Luke being taken in by the dark side, and Vader redeeming himself.
Yeah.
Boom.
I wonder if that could be Kylo's path in the new movies.
Yeah, possibly. We've still got time to, there's still time for him to redeem and rearm, as it were.
These options in these alternate options for the original trilogy could very easily port across and become
for sure
the new stories, couldn't they?
Yeah, I think we've even speculated to that sort of end in the past.
In a way, wouldn't that be the question Marc's posing? What would be different if Luke had learned earlier from Obi-Wan? Is that what Ben Solo's path is? In a way, he's learnt about Vader's presence and his bloodline. So maybe we're seeing what Luke's path would have been in Ben.
Maybe, but I mean, also we don't know. We suspect that actually he found it out from elsewhere, and it was still kept from him. So maybe Luke was planning on doing a similar kind of thing, where it's sort of kept from him until he was, for lack of a better expression, old enough to deal with it. And then Snoke went, they're keeping something massive from you, don't you?
Mm. And then the news came out, like the way it did in Bloodline.
Yeah.
So do you think Luke was thinking of a way to sort of drum up a huge, massive lie like Obi-Wan did and become an unreliable narrator?
Maybe. Either that or he was just trying to work out how to break it to him.
Yeah.
And just didn't quite get to the point where he actually could, because Snoke got there first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe Luke told Snoke, going, I don't know what to do.
But Snoke's actually his counselor.
You leave that to me. I'll help you. And then he's like,
for $120 an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Might be a
some help,
sponsor.
mate.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Come help, mate.
Jedi's Anonymous. Interesting concept, though, to know.
Yeah.
I wonder if there could be a little spin-off comic book series there. Finding out what... I'll have to go back to the Star Wars. I've got that comic book and see...
I've just read that recently, actually.
Have you? It's pretty good.
Yeah.
The artwork in it is stunning.
Oh, the art's lovely, yeah.
Is it Alex Ross?
I don't know, to be honest.
It looks like his style.
I'm not very good on the comic art.
Yeah, he's like
artist.
a fine artist. He paints. It's beautiful stuff. Interesting. A very interesting question, though, Mark. Thank you for that.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
All right. Who wants to take Dan Solo's question this week after we crushed his question last week?
What was his question last week?
You'll see he kind of he nods to it in this one. Do you want to take that, Paul?
Okay. Apparently.
Go for it, mate.
Hi, Paul and the rest of the gang at Talk Star Wars.
Editing.
I'm Dan Solo at Star Wars Sucker.
Yeah, mate.
I'm trying to. And I had my Leah theory mercilessly shot down by you all last week.
Sorry, not sorry.
I'm still not remembering. I'm sorry. However,
fairly sure. To be fair, if it was being shot down, it was probably me. So sorry, not sorry.
Now that'll make a change.
I don't think it qualified as mercilessly.
No. More like is there an assassinatedly?
Is there a fairly slaughtered?
Anyway, however, this was done in the eloquent and passionate manner that keeps me returning to your podcast time and time again to listen to us and ask more questions.
Good recovery.
Sorry about that. From what you suggested on last week's show, it sounds like we won't see a redeemed Kylo Ren unless it happens very late on in the saga, which might be too much of a retread of what we saw with Vader. Therefore, my question is simply, will Kylo respond to Rey's taunt about his fear of never being as strong as Darth Vader, and will he indeed reach that level or perhaps even surpass it? Thanks so much. Have a great show. Dan Solo. Cool. Steve.
Hello.
It's my show now, by the way.
Well, I guess because Snoke's such a weak character at the moment, I would imagine that, and also he's not a real character. I know they're going to puppetize him, but he's not got a lot of substance either.
Can I interject again?
God, blimey. Yeah,
well, Snoke's not mentioned in this question.
No, that's because I finished answering it, have I?
Oh, okay.
So just give it a minute. Stop interjecting. Snoke is such a weak character and CGI or a puppet and doesn't have a lot of substance, I think they will invariably turn to Kylo and or another as a means to effect a very strong baddie. So I think regardless of Rey's taunt about his fear of never being as strong as Darth Vader, he's just killed his pappy. I think he's going to be a really bad, at least in this film, before he gets redeemed, and then Rey will chew bubblegum and kick butt.
Nice.
In that order?
They don't have bubblegum here.
They have bobblegum.
Bubblegum,
hey!
Yeah. Thank you.
Bubblegum shrimp. So that's my answer. I think you'll find that included Kylo and Rey and Snoke.
Neat. Very neat.
In the future, people are going to ask the question, when did Talk Star Wars fall apart? And I'm going to say it's about show 76, I think was...
It's because we only are good every 25 shows.
If I had to put a pin in the map, I'm going to say episode 76.
Hey, if you
People
want
seem to like those ones.
Stick around for episode 100. We'll be awesome.
We hope.
Sorry. Yeah,
Bold.
It's only 25 episodes.
Rob, Kylo, will he reach
Hello.
the heights of Vader's power?
Right.
I'm not even sure what was funny about that.
What Mark said.
Oh, okay. That doesn't really help me, but all right. I think he'll be strong in different ways. The problem with this question is it delves back into the M word, doesn't it? And
right.
It's Anakin's the chosen one, and he's got all
Paul
the M
looks
words.
for a word beginning with M.
Well, when you get there and you react vocally, just keep it as quiet as you can, yeah? A little yelp. So when he Anakin is the chosen one with the highest M-word count of anybody in known galactic history. Now, I presume that they're either a kind of, I don't really know how they work, that they're sort of a random event. I presume he is, but he's a creation of the M-words. I'll sod it. Midichlorians. It's just a word. Doesn't have any power.
Apparently it does have some power.
Apparently so. But he's born of the midichlorians, as we're never explicitly stated, but it's sort of heavily implied that he's born of the midichlorians and thus the most powerful being it's possible to be in the Force. So in terms of raw power, I don't know that it's possible, because you presume that it dilutes as you breed with normies.
Stands to reason, yeah.
Yeah. Unless you keep it sort of in the family, as it were, if you pardon the expression. I mean, I'm not talking like as loud as a speeder bike. I'm not talking, Luke and Leia, keep it in the family. I mean, just keep it within sort of the Jedi, and they don't form attachments, but they may be reproduced for the purposes of keeping the Jedi going. But I think that it's not possible for him to have the same midichlorian levels. Whether or not to say he can't be more powerful, because power is there's different types of power in the Star Wars universe. You can have midichlorians.
What, you mean like 110 volt, 230 volt?
I assume that's what they use. Double A's. I mean, I don't see anybody changing any batteries, so I presume what they've got is pretty robust. Also, shut up.
I didn't want to take it any further.
That's fine. But I get the impression that he's probably going to be interested in. He's interested, obviously, in reaching the same heights, but I don't necessarily think his path has to be purely about force power, because obviously Vader had a decent military clout in the Empire as well, so he can also go down that route to consolidate power. And actually, overthrowing Snoke would make him supreme leader, and that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So I think there are there's more than one way to answer this question. Whether or not he will hit it in terms of the force power, I don't think it's possible. I think the whole point of Anakin being the chosen one is there's nobody more powerful. With the raw materials at the very least. Now he might become, I don't know, more refined. He might have a more refined use of it. And obviously we know he can do certain things that Vader doesn't do. Like he can stop a blaster bolt in midair, although we see Vader catch. I'm still maintaining we see Vader catch one in his hand and hurl it back without suffering any damage.
In Rogue One, yeah, that's pretty clear.
In Rogue One, yeah. So I think, he's definitely got some powers that Vader has never exhibited. I think it's a difficult one to answer with any kind of definitive. I don't think it's a black or white answer. I think it's I think there's different types of power. I think he will probably be as important as Vader in terms of the galaxy. Mm-hmm. But I don't necessarily think he's going to be able. I don't think he can attain the level of force powers that Vader did in terms of midichlorian levels, because I don't think it's possible to exceed the most possible. Okay. If you're born from the midichlorians, that stands to reason.
Yeah, because we know that Anakin's midichlorian count was higher than Yoda's, but we don't know if his was maxed out. We don't know if there is another Force user with higher midichlorian levels. We don't know about.
It stands to reason that nobody should be more capable than Anakin. That's the whole point.
In the way the chosen one is framed, yeah. In the way the chosen one is framed, it would sort of it would be unlikely unless that was explicitly outlined in another sort of prophecy or in something in the Journal of the Wills, perhaps.
Yeah.
In a way, the Force is a bit like Awa in Avatar.
All right, okay. I mean, I'd say it's probably the other way around, isn't it? Because Star Wars was first.
Well, yeah, I mean, Star Wars happened a long time ago in a galaxy far away. But
Steve, are you in deliberately provocative mode, or are you actually trying to make a point?
Then Rob
Little from column
jestized
eight.
it, and that is a new word. Hashtag jestized.
Jestized. Oh, I feel
And now I
constertion.
felt like making a joke. It was
Nostalgia.
actually a serious
Oh,
point
I feel
buried
some
under there.
cold heat there.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep that serious point that was buried under there. I'm going to pile
Go
more
for it.
dirt on it.
Go
I'm
for it.
never going to uncover it again.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We'll strike
Until
that
next
up
week.
as a loss for us. Paul,
Mm-hmm.
Kylo Ren, will he ever be?
Mark's
will,
clearly feeling that loss.
will he ever
Depends
be
how
as
you,
powerful as Vader?
Depends how you categorize the word power.
Mhm.
I mean, in Kylo's eyes, he's possibly looking at Darth Vader as being a little bit of a failure because he couldn't carry the deed through when it came between Luke and the Emperor.
Definitely.
And he actually he sided with his father. Kylo's already had the ability to take his own father down in a reasonably cold fashion, if you like. So from that point of view, he may well think I'm almost on a level pegging because, I mean, when you hear from the point of view of, you know, paramedichlorians and all those kind of bits and pieces, we also hear it. If you're turning to the dark side and you're releasing all your anger and so on, it seems to make your power somewhat more amplified for some reason. So does that mean a Sith Lord actually has more power anyway? Because if it's based on loathing and hate and power and so on, from that point of view, it seems that they're not, you know, it accelerates it from that point of view. So from that point of view, yeah, he's got the power to surpass him and be an absolute badass, really.
It depends. I mean, interestingly enough, didn't this come up on the round table, Mark, about lightsaber battles, and the only time a light Jedi can ever win is when they the only time a Jedi can ever win a lightsaber battle is when they draw on their anger a bit.
Yeah, I think
Because
that's
there's
a
usually
really
some-
good point.
It's interesting because it makes you wonder if the whole Jedi ethos is not suited to fighting at all, and they only get in them when they want, you know, they only get in them to sort of maybe to help other people escape or to delay the bad and
Oh, yeah,
Well, it
it's
is
dark and light, isn't it?
knowledge and
So-
defense. And when we see the first two Jedi in Phantom Menace, most of what they're doing is defensive, isn't it? It's using the lightsabers to
parry and deflect.
and deflect and sort of protect the people in their charge.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of interesting that you've hit on similar points here. It does depend largely on how we define power, and I think if you look at it, my take on it is if you look at it from a military point of view, where Vader was an effective military leader, even though, well, not when it comes to killing all of your senior officers, because he did quite a bit of that, but as a military leader, he sort of ran a much tighter ship from what we can see in Empire than Kylo, because Kylo, in military terms, Kylo is just a child, isn't he? When we see him in Empire, sort of smashing in Force Awakens, smashing things up,
and he doesn't get his way, basically.
Yeah, and everybody sees him doing it. And even if you see Hux alongside Kylo Ren when they're in an audience with Snoke, Kylo kind of diminishes himself alongside Hux. I don't think he'll ever be that sort of significant military presence that Vader was, because I think he's just too immature. He's a bit too much of a brat. And in terms of the Force, I think what we've just been discussing about how the Jedi are the strongest when they are off the chain, like Obi-Wan coming out against Darth Maul. He's being fueled by anger there. Luke, when he goes up against Vader on the Death Star 2, that's being fueled by anger. The Jedi are more effective when they let go of the doctrine that keeps them in check. And I think Kylo is plagued by the exact opposite of that. Whereas he's supposed to be this character that's off the chain. He's supposed to be this dark side user. He's modelling himself after his grandfather. Whether it's Sith or not, don't know. But with the red blade and the black cloak, you know, he's trying to be the big bad. But we hear the pull to the light all the time. He's naturally inhibiting himself, I think. He's preventing himself from taking that leap forward that he needs. And all that is to just abandon any shred of humanity and lose yourself completely.
Wouldn't it be great if we just had even just as a spoof thing, because they're prone to, you know, they're quite keen on send up at Lucasfilm, because obviously they do Saturday Night Live sketches and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It'd be great if we'd had a sort of a version of the Pull of the Light where it's just, you know, he's standing there glaring at somebody and they're just like, and the voice just comes in his head, buy him a puppy. I would buy him a puppy.
Maybe it would be Lampy, the pull of that light.
Maybe, yeah. And then you just hear another voice go, smash that console up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Actually, I'll do that, yeah.
Yeah, like he's got two voices. He has, and it is, I mean, you're joking, but it is almost like that, isn't it? That he's got these these two things competing.
Not quite like that.
I think that's where Leia's going to come into the story in a phenomenal way. I think it's his mother that is keeping him just this side of that fence at the moment.
It makes you wonder. I mean, that's going back to Dan's question from last week, isn't it? About will she redeem Kylo in 8? And I think we all agreed that 8 seems a little bit too soon to round out Kylo's story, but she would certainly be the most appropriate character to do it.
She's best placed for sure.
Unless those responsibilities can shift over to Luke. If Luke can reach through to Ben in a way that can save him, then you've got Luke doing the redeeming. Again, Luke the Redeemer, but something's telling me it's going to be Rey.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how that will work.
No, that'll be cliched.
Maybe.
Yeah, it does seem a bit. I'm with Paul on that one. It seems a bit. I mean, you know, we've talked before about how you have to be careful not to just give her everything to do because it just comes off like lazy. It just comes off a bit lazy to just give her everything and just be like, she's really powerful, so she can do all this stuff, and that's fine, and deal with it. And also, I think she's got no connection to him.
Leia's an understandable tangent.
Yeah, exactly. And
understandable and tangible, I meant to say. Sorry.
And so far, they've been quite good antagonists for each other. They've sort of played against each other quite well, and I think that's probably going to carry on. I don't see her being. To be honest, I don't see her, certainly not at the beginning of the film, being interested in redeeming him. I see her interested in lopping his nuts off.
Yeah.
Finishing what she started on Starkiller Base. So she'll probably have to get that reined in, you'd hope. Because obviously it's going to be a 12A at most, so you don't want to see that be lopped off.
No,
nobody wants to see that.
Not the details, but I'd be interested in seeing her go to zero in on him full tilt, if that becomes her objective.
Yeah.
It depends on what Luke's objective is then, because we know he wants the Jedi to end. So does he want to abandon the Jedi doctrine? Is he going to give her everything she needs to go after him as a warrior?
Well, you say that, but we don't know that's true because, as I've rather brilliantly postulated, that line could be 2 chunks of a 3-part line, and the middle bit is the condition under which Rey is struggling with her training. So not letting go of her anger or all that sort of stuff. Yeah, but I don't necessarily think it's as clear cut as that.
If these terms aren't met, then it's time for the Jedi to end. It's conditional on a certain element that we don't understand yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Get your together, woman.
Oh, that's a beep.
What woman?
Paul, this is a family show.
Paul's not a beep, surely. That's ridiculous.
He's been called worse.
So should we just do a quick summation roundtable? I don't think Kylo can ever reach Vader's heights of power. Paul?
Surpass them.
Steve? Has gone. Rob?
Hello.
Is he really gone?
I don't know.
So sorry, we're doing the roundup of that question?
Yeah, just to round up. In a word, do you think he can surpass his power? I'm just summing up.
I think he'll gain a significant amount of power, but I don't think he will ever get to Vader's heights.
Okay, so that's 2 no and 1 yes.
But he won't be as tall as him, no.
And no, Stephen. We don't know how tall Kylo is yet.
Well, he said he wouldn't get to his heights. He
might own platforms.
No, he's a fully grown man. He's not going to grow anymore.
Right, well, this was going to be Steve's question, but he's run off to take a phone call, so I'll take Dave's because then we're going to head into Connor's Corner. So, Rob, you'll be doing the heavy lifting there. So this is from Dave Donovan. He says it's a bit of a reach, but what if the little stone huts on the planet on Ahch-To are made of Kyber? Like each rock is one of those little orinids, the rocks with crystals inside them. could explain why Luke is there, as well as a few other things like why the planet was not on a known map, either Imperial or otherwise. And did the Jedi Council in their time ever go looking for it or even know about it? Surely Luke would have explored the Jedi Temple, which became Palpatine's palace once the Empire had fallen, and the Republic re-established the Order to find things he needed to set up his new academy. So Dave says there's 2 6-hour flights and a 5-hour layover. Exhausted question from Dave.
Ouch.
So could Ahch-To be a Kyber-rich planet? Let's throw that around first. I can see Steve messaging in the group. So.
Have you got any reason to believe in extended canon or extended universe that such a place exists?
Ahch-To?
No, well, such a place that would have this amount of Kyber.
I can't think of anything specifically.
I thought the reason all the kiddies went to harvest at that place was because it was the only known place, and that's why they took them and so on. So,
yeah, what's that planet called where they go for their crystals, Rob?
Is it Elam?
Ilum, yes, that's right, Ilum. The mines of Ilum. So yeah, they go there for Kyber, but I think it's a bit like Jeddah. So it's a planet that has lots of Kyber deposits on it, but I don't think it's as significant as what Dave's implying here in this question, that this is a planet that's sort of largely Kyber.
Mm.
So I'm trying to get. I mean, he's saying about the huts being made of it. Was that what you said?
Yeah,
initially,
that the rocks will have crystals.
Yeah, is it made of it because it is part of the island, or they're just made of it, but they've come from an alternative source, or what? Whether the island's actually rich. See, it's no coincidence. Obviously, the map was a big question mark in Force Awakens, or the lack of. So, number one, was he hiding his pilgrimage? And number two, was he hiding this extremely, fruitful source of Kyber? So both could go arm in arm there. So it's not that much of a reach, actually.
Yeah, it doesn't show up on the map because Luke's hidden it though, right? That map. R2 got from the Death Star. That's the thing,
but it's a twofold situation. He's hidden it because, hey, look at this place, and B, oh, by the way, this is part of my pilgrimage because of this place. But it's still twofold. One is as important as the other.
Yeah. And I suspect if the Empire knew about it, they'd have harvested that planet the way they harvested Jeddah.
No doubt.
I think it was a complete secret.
What, Ahch-To?
I think the whole point of it was that Luke went off searching for the first Jedi Temple, and I don't think it was written down anywhere in any sort of straightforward terms. I think it was all kind of alluded to, and there were sort of riddles and stuff there to figure out before they got to that point.
So literally the map is him annotating his path, and
it's his stops, and he finds some sort of note, or what's it called? I don't know. Just he finds some kind of indication as to where to head next, and what to ask, and who to ask, or what to find, and where to look for it, and stuff like that. Because I mean, obviously, these planets are big places, so there could be Jedi caves kind of off in the tail end of nowhere that nobody else knows about. So then he might be sort of being gradually kind of led down the path by sort of a breadcrumb trail. I mean, you got to imagine. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, I was going to say. I mean, in relation to what we assume could be something, either the actual Journal of the Wills, or certainly related to the Journals of the Wills in that cave. Were they placed by him? Were they placed before him and called to him, or was he told to go there because they would be there waiting for him? There's that attachment as well.
Yeah, well, I was kind of coming to something similar actually.
Sorry.
That's all right. It's similar but not the same, so it's good. You imagine if that was a Kyber-rich planet, if you're the last Jedi, those crystals have got to be going, oi!
Yeah, constantly.
Yeah. Luke.
Alan.
Luke.
And not just.
Oh wait, that's Steve.
Not just Luke though either. There's Luke's communing with Yoda, and he's communing with Obi-Wan. Yeah. We've seen him doing that in the OT. So presumably they might be a resource for him to tap into this thing. They might, just the way Obi-Wan rocked up on the Hoth and said, "You got to go to Dagobah." Yeah. What's saying that he didn't have a another vision later on of someone saying you need to seek out Ahch-To, and this is the only way you can get there. You need to go through, almost like his trials. You need to follow this path. If you find one thing, it'll lead you to the next thing. It'll lead you to the next thing. And those books, Paul, I suspect are things that Luke's amassed on his journey. Like he's finding this volume here and that volume there, and they're things that he's finding useful in his understanding of the Force, whatever his objective is, and he's taken them with him, and it's created a new little Jedi library that might be the start of his own part of the Order.
Yeah, could be.
Steve, you back with us?
Hello.
Dave Donovan's asking if we think that Ahch-To might be a Kyber-rich planet.
Makes sense if Luke's there. Sorry, I just rejoined this. I guess we said about Dagobah, didn't we, being kind of possibly Kyber-rich because Luke gets called there and Yoda's there. So it makes sense to me.
And
I'm not sure about... Don't they exist at the bottom of volcanoes then, where the pressure's high? Much like a diamond.
Well, they're in caves and stuff, aren't they? So I think that's kind of implied. I don't.
Are they the result of something, or are they naturally formed?
Well,
they're all Metachlorians joined together, aren't they?
They're living. They're sort of sentient things now. Yeah, so they could be Metachlorians. I haven't heard that word thrown at them yet, but they are living things within the Force.
Oh, okay.
So they are kind of entities, and it's a symbiotic relationship. That's why they go inside that's why they call to the user and they go inside the lightsaber.
Sorry. Oh, it's my fault. Sorry, this is about the bird. We have to
it's the injured bird.
Sorry.
Is it the parent?
Oh, mate, take your call. Mute your iPad, Steve.
I think he already has.
Has he gone? Okay.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's the parent, the worried parent of the injured bird.
Yeah. He won't understand because it'd just be tweets and whistles, wouldn't it?
So in its natural form, how large would one of these be?
They vary pretty wildly, to be honest.
What, the crystals?
Yeah, the crystals themselves. I mean, you're talking several inches long, or... We
see the kids find them in the caves in an episode of the Clone Wars, and they're small, and Ezra's was tiny.
But if you put one in a lightsaber, it's going to be fairly small, isn't it? So.
In the book Catalyst, the precursor to Rogue One, they're sort of described as being finger-sized. The ones that are harvested from the fallen Jedi's weapons, which is a very creepy element to that story. Yeah. And they're presented to Galen Erso by Krennic in a little box as a prize. You know, these are what you're looking for, aren't they? Actual Kyber crystals. But the ones we see in Rogue One that are being harvested by the Empire are significantly bigger.
Mm.
Yeah,
they're like
indeed.
They're huge, aren't they? Almost like a lightsaber hilt size themselves.
Yeah.
And I imagine that the array inside the Death Star is a selection of huge crystals. In fact, I think in Catalyst, one's referred to in a lab that they're testing as being quite significant in size.
Mm. Oh my.
So we've kind of answered some of this breakdown, haven't we, with why is it not on a map? Would the Jedi Council have been looking for this thing? Let's tackle that bit next. So would the Jedi Council have known about Ahch-To? Would they be looking for Ahch-To or the early Jedi temples?
Okay, at no point in the movies that I've seen have I heard discussion from them in relation to crystals anyway, but have you guys read further material like that?
No, I've got
not that I can recall, no.
I've got a definite position on this aspect of the breakdown, but I'll let you guys go first.
Well, I can't begin to speculate, but I'm getting the idea. No,
yeah.
I don't think they have, to be honest, because it's not mentioned once. And for them to be, I mean, certainly in the prequels, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, a third of all the prequels is various council sittings and meetings and goodness knows what else about the Chosen One and everything else and all the politics behind it and moving on. But you don't ever hear a concern about this facet. So,
no, Rob.
No, I don't see it. To be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if we learned that they'd presumed it long lost, and Luke just stumbled upon something that made him think it wasn't lost after all. I can totally believe that.
Yeah. What else
seems likely to me.
Why else would Luke go in search of the first temple unless he was looking for answers that he couldn't get
Exactly,
from Coruscant? And I think my definite position on this is that I don't think the Jedi had any interest in the past.
No, I think you're right as well.
In episode 1, when they tabled the Chosen One for discussion, it's like, oh, you mean this old prophecy can't be true? The Sith have gone. They're too comfortable at this point, the Jedi. They're too comfortable on Coruscant in their high-rise temple with their, they're almost like military police monks. They're not really doing much Jedi work, are they? They're not really out there as what's really Qui-Gon's role at the opening is a negotiator. He's been to negotiate a treaty, isn't he? He's not been gone to right or wrong. He's there he's representing the Chancellor, sort of trying to come to a political conclusion to something. They're not really a religious order. Not the way I think that we've seen implied since, with the priestesses sending Yoda on his little mission to learn more about the Force, to transcend their physical forms the way Qui-Gon learned. Qui-Gon's the one talking about the living Force. The Jedi themselves seem to be lost in this kind of political realm.
Yeah, he's the only spiritual one deep down, isn't he?
Yeah.
I guess Yoda is to an enormous degree, actually.
But Yoda
the rest
needs
of them
to be woken up
they
to
are
that.
political envoys, aren't they?
They are very much, and Yoda needs to be woken up to the Qui-Gon way of thinking. That happens in the animated show. So they take a step towards that by him having his eyes opened by this Force priestess, like a manifestation of the Force. And she says, you got to go and you got to learn about these things. You got to go to this planet and confront the darker aspects of yourself. She sends him on a mission that opens his eyes, and then he starts to learn about the being able to transcend the physical form, become one with the Force. He starts to do it all through communion with Qui-Gon, which we hear at the end of Revenge of the Sith. So it's mentioned in the movies as much as later on they go back and fill in some more information in the animated shows. So I don't think they were doing a very good job of being Jedi when we see them on Coruscant. I don't think that's what the Jedi are supposed to be. And I think Luke, the last part is, did Luke ever go to Coruscant and explore the Jedi Temple? I don't think there's much there for him. He'd have gone there and seen what? These gilded halls, these high vaulted ceilings. Everyone's got their own chair in a little circle. That's great. But
actually, that's assuming that the Palpatine hasn't stripped it and just kind of demolished it. So actually, he might go there and go, "There's nothing here." Yeah, maybe I can find one that hasn't been destroyed.
Yeah, and I mean, there might be, even if I'm wrong, and the Jedi did have everything, all the answers. There's no reason why Palpatine would keep that in one piece, is there? He might have done this huge book burning when he took over, but I'm getting the feeling that's not the case. I'm getting the feeling that the Jedi might end up being retconned for us in these new films, and we might hear that from Yoda himself. If it's true that he appears as a Force ghost, he might appear and sort of help. If Rey turns up, Daisy has said, don't meet your heroes because they'll disappoint, when she was talking about Rey meeting Luke. She might have turned up thinking she was going to meet Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master, in the style of those old Jedi Masters, Obi-Wan, Yoda, not Qui-Gon, because we've already said he was somewhat different. And when she meets Luke, she doesn't see that guy. What she sees is someone that's saying, no, I'm trying to get to Qui-Gon's version. I'm trying to understand the living Force. I'm trying to understand how you can use both light and dark side of the Force without any consequences, without losing yourself to it, and not dealing with, not choosing sides and going to war. Like the Bendu exist in the middle, not take sides, not use the Force, be a rock in the stream. I've mentioned that before. And I wonder if that's the conclusion that Luke's come to. That's the Force, that's the Jedi Order he's trying to build, is a presence within the Force, not a group of lightsaber wielding policemen that will use the Force for their own benefit, even though they've created this non-violent doctrine around themselves. Anything else we want to add to this? Luke going back to Coruscant. Steve, you back with us or not? No, he's still gone.
Sorry, no.
No, okay. All right, well, Dave, that's a great question. I hope that we see some of this explored. I hope that we see, probably I'd imagine it's after 9 that we might go backwards and see a little bit about what Luke did after the fall of the Empire and after the reclamation of Coruscant. And my gut is telling me right now that he'd have gone back there and said, "There's nothing here for me." Not the answers I'm looking for. They don't exist here. And he might have, and I imagine that being a really interesting sort of kung fu style. You remember that old TV show, that kung fu style pilgrimage, where it's just there's no answers for me here. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know it's not here. So just going off, almost going walkabout, just to try and find it, and just following his instincts and following the Force to where he needs to be. That could be really interesting to see. And we know that Lor San Tekka's a part of that from current canon. So,
yeah,
really,
Dave, great question. Thank you very much for that, mate. All right, we don't know when Steve's going to be back with us, but we're going to go to our break now, and then when we come back, we're going to jump into this week's Connor's Corner, and then a couple of bit of Star Wars news, and a nice little discussion about Star Wars directors. We'll be right back. If you'd like to support what we do here at Talk Star Wars, you can do so by becoming a TSW sponsor. For as little as £1 per month, given securely via PayPal, you'll help us keep the lights on here at Talk Star Wars. When you become a TSW sponsor, we will automatically make you a TSW VIP. As a VIP, you'll get access to an exclusive stream of content that provides you with a daily podcast called the TSW Kessel Run, membership to the TSW VIP Facebook group, priority releases of shows such as the TSW Toy Box and TSW Comics. You'll also get priority access to the TSW Feature Com series and weekly Facebook Live and AMA sessions. There are also newsletters and a monthly prize draw. Head to talkstarwars.co.uk/support and become a TSW sponsor today, and the Force will be with you always.
And we're back. So as you've just heard, you can find out more about the TSW VIP program by going to talkstarwars.co.uk/support, like Connor did. And as is customary, it's time for Connor's Corner featuring Leo. So Connor writes thusly. Everybody drink. Well, my friends, I'm hoping you're all in good health and high spirits. Well, 1 out of 2. So in the last week or so, the Star Wars news feeds have been full of speculation and chat about the departure of the directors of the Han Solo film. While this is not the first film in which the studio and directors have parted ways, it has become a big deal in the world of fandom. And let's face it, we all like to speculate about what happened, but the truth is we'll never probably know. The creative differences line is always a go-to in such instances.
Very true.
So in the last week, Leo and I attended Comic-Con Northern Ireland, and as usual, there was a heavy Star Wars presence. The Star Wars fans are, in my opinion, some of the nicest and most passionate, I'm assuming, in the galaxy of sci-fi fandom. It just took a remark from Leo while we were watching the Battlefront 2 trailer, which was something along the lines of, "I'd totally watch a Star Wars film like that," which a couple of guys standing in front of us turned around and said, "I know, right? It'd be brilliant." I was talking with these two lads who are only 19 and 22, I think, both of whom watched the Clone Wars and Rebels. Leo has watched these. I've dipped in and out myself, but must admit some of the character design I found a bit jarring. What do you guys think of this? Could you get into something like that? I'm not talking photorealistic animation here, Polar Express or Xmas Carol. The eyes always look dead to me, empty and soulless. Could this high-quality CGI be an answer to some of those Star Wars stories that would be more difficult to recreate with our legacy characters? Remember how much it cost to de-age Robert Downey Jr. for that scene in Civil War? We can still have our beloved heroes and villains on screen with their CGI likeness and their own voice, adding an extra layer of depth. All those tales we've heard, Shadows of the Empire, for instance. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this, good idea or bad. It's always interesting to hear what you say on such matters. Thanks, gents. Stay safe, be well, and as always, may the Force be with you always. Connor and Leo. This email was brought to you by Bossnass Studios, the last choice in animation.
Awesome. That's going on my list of T-shirt designs, which I'm now doing in honour of his sign-offs. Connor and Leo also won the hand-drawn DL44 by Mr. Keegan in this evening's draw.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that is a nice piece.
Congratulations to them fine gentlemen. I wonder who will get that on their wall.
Connor.
If Connor wants to be dead of the year, that's definitely going to Leo.
Sorry.
All right, so I know we've covered a bit of these opinions in previous segments when we've sort of discussed what we'd like to see from future Star Wars projects and what have you. But would you be interested in completely computer animated Star Wars movies, perhaps featuring some of our old favourite characters? Rob, let's start off with you, mate.
I kind of would actually. I wouldn't like to see them go down the de-aging route for the whole film, because I think the longer it's on screen, the worse it looks. Tarkin excluded, because I thought he looked awesome. But he was on for sort of short periods of time at any one thing. He wasn't on for a whole film's worth of time. And if you're focusing on that character, they're going to be on screen for good, 2/3, if not more, of the film. So I think less has to be more with that stuff. I think it's going to get to the stage where it's going to get as close to photorealistic as it ever will, but I don't think we're there yet. I think with that regards, I would happily, however, watch another animated movie, animated feature length in a similar vein to Clone Wars. Maybe not with the animation style of the Clone Wars movie, but with more of a Clone Wars animated series kind of approach.
Right. Okay.
No, I remember the Clone Wars movie looking a little bit rougher than the TV series.
Yeah, the TV series.
That may be nostalgia, but
definitely no. The TV series definitely grew into the technology, I think.
Yeah, so especially I think by the time
ones.
Yeah, by the time the series ended, I think it looks. I think that's the kind of. I'd be happy with the feature length movie to that sort of standard of animation. The style,
the hyper stylized.
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm good with hyper stylized, and actually, when you do it right, it looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, people know me. I'm into my games, and some of the best graphical kind of experiences I've had have not been where they have the shiniest objects and the best sort of shadows and lighting and stuff. It's when they have the best style. And if they nail that down, then if everything kind of works within its own ecosystem, then as long as you nail the style down, you can achieve anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And this, I think this stuff in Battlefront 2 is kind of photorealistic now, isn't it? It's not it's not stylized particularly. But what do you make of that? You've seen the trailer, I take it, Rob, for Battlefront 2. With there's like Stormtrooper armor. There's a lot of really good-looking Stormtrooper armor, and there's a young woman is the lead character, and she's almost a spitting image of the actress that plays her.
Right.
So in terms of photorealism, I know they haven't had to de-age her, and admittedly, I'm not as familiar with her face as I am, say, Carrie Fisher or Mark Hamill's face. So it'd be very difficult for me to sort of say that's not quite right. But if they did that with Mark Hamill, I might be, like we did when people sort of called Tarkin out on the 1% of it that failed.
Yeah,
it was kind of because something in there didn't register as being true, and I don't notice it with this young lady because I'm not very familiar with her as a performer. So I'll give it a free pass. But if I had those references from decades of having watched those characters, it might give it away. But that style, instead of it being a stylized animation, what if they brought you that photorealism with a character like Ahsoka? Because it's not somebody that you ever... It's not like you have a reference for her, really, in sort of terms of photorealism. So would that, that realistic look with that kind of character, would that work for you in a feature-length version?
Maybe. I don't know. For me, the whole thing has to fit together. I don't know.
Paul, what about you, mate? What's your take on this? Radio silence. Paul, you're muted, I think. Or has he BRB'd?
So sorry. Oh, man. I was giving you pearls, man. I swear.
Oh, that's right. Reset.
Right, yeah, rewind. No, I'm too old school, I'm afraid. My passion for Star Wars for me is robots, props, sets. I don't care if a set moves a little bit. It's about the passion. It's about the story, but it's about the semi-realism and my escape, wanting to walk on that set, wanting to wear that suit, lift that gun, and so on and so forth. So when we did things like Star Wars Identities, my jaw hits the floor because C-3PO standing in front of me and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, I'm actually against it. It's not that I wouldn't want to see it. I don't want it to happen. I mean, no, that's not fair because I can't take away from other people that obviously would like to see that kind of thing. But no, that's completely not my bag. I'm very old school Star Wars. I'd rather see a film made out of Star Wars figures, frankly.
Yeah, well, I think that was kind of the concept behind Rebels, which was it would be a sort of Kenner action figure line brought to life. That's why they're modelled after, especially things like the TIE fighters and the troop transports. They're all modelled after the Kenner toy range.
What was the Shadows of the Empire reference in the question, by the way? All those tales we've heard.
It's, well, I mean, I think he's sort of saying, would you be up for one of those tales being told
I see.
In the
because
form
Shadows
of a live
is
action?
A fabulous story.
In an animated film, rather. Shadows is. I don't know that they'd bring it back.
No, definitely not. But I think what he means is
I like it.
In that time frame. So what we've said before, we'd love to see
what you mean. Okay, yeah.
We'd love to see a story between A New Hope and Empire, or between Empire and Jedi.
Okay.
A filler, a bit like Rogue One, a filler story that can stand on its own, but it might feature like a young Harrison Ford as Han Solo when you're telling that story of how the rebels bug out from Yavin and end up on Hoth.
But in that CGI mode,
but completely CG. So it's not like you've got live action characters on a CG background, which is some of the stuff that failed in the prequels. By degrees, and again, it's not everyone would agree with that. I know that there are people that are perfectly fine with it, but I felt that some of that, the CG elements didn't tie together well with the live action. And these are films
and at
that
the same time, I mean, there are a few faults with the original trilogy, but we do bypass those because of the romance that they held for us. And the romance came from storytelling using groovy actors in these phenomenal sets, these wonderful suits, it's like, man, the robot moves and, that kind of thing. I mean, even Mark Hamill was still freaking out. He said, we've got this thing, BB-8, it's real, we can't believe it, sort of thing. And that's the kind of passion I get from these. So, yeah, I'd rather go mechanical than CGI any day of the week.
Well, I've got to say, I quite like this concept, and I'm with Connor all the way here. The Shadows of the Empire thing, I think, is a real the crux to this question is that I want to see those stories, not necessarily that story, but I want to see those stories now with the characters that we can't get back. The young Luke, the young Leia, the young Han.
Splinter.
We can't see them again. Splinter and Mind's Eye. I don't think we should tell that story because that was before Luke and Leia were brother and sister, but it's definitely...
It's also not very good.
Yeah. Well, it was, really old, sort of pre-Empire sort of, it hadn't really formed, the universe hadn't formed around the story at that point. But there are stories to be told, and I do want to see the stories, particularly, I've said this before, the day after Jedi, I really want to see that. And I'd be fine if it was presented in complete animation to me. And I'm really easy here. I'm with you, Rob. I like the hyper stylized stuff. If they wanted to give me a TV series of it and do it stylistically, I love the Clone Wars style. They look like painted dolls to me, sort of animated. I really like that. I like the Rebel style, that glossy sort of look. I would like them to find a new style if they're going to do something stylized. But in terms of this Battlefront 2 stuff, I think if they could stretch that out to a 2-hour feature and it be robust enough to pass the test, I'm on board completely. I would love that. You still got the freedom. I mean, most of the stuff that we're seeing in these movies anyway, that battle from the trailer in Last Jedi that we see in space, most of that is CGI, right? I'm sure there is some model work in there, but most of that is CGI. So what's the difference? It's only half a step away from what we're seeing in games. And if you break down the percentage of a Star Wars movie that is that, then making up the rest of it with animated characters, I'm sure they can get to it at some point.
Polished fuselage running through space is something we actually never witnessed in any shape or form in real life. Is totally different to us looking at an actor on a set.
No, I agree. And as I say, my approval of this is contingent on them being able to pull it off. And from what I'm seeing in Battlefront 2, I think they're doing it. That young lady who's the
I
lead
just looked
character.
at the trailer, and I'm not on your side of the fence on that one.
Am I being too generous?
I'm still seeing it to be a little bit Clone Wars type when you get to those kind of elements.
Yeah, I don't. This is where I think doing a completely animated thing is a good idea, rather than doing a live action with some animated elements in it, so de-aged characters. Because I think once you send somebody into an animated movie, you already brokered the deal. Like, you're going to see an animated film, so you're not going to be tripped up by when you watch an animated character. Like Connor mentions, the Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey. Once you check into that and you know, well, this is an animated film, you don't stumble over the quirky nature of some of the character model builds. If you put them along live action characters,
she does look good, actually.
She does.
But I wouldn't want a film of it.
But when you go in there knowing that that's what you're getting, I think you are much more forgiving, because, like you said, Rob, and a really good point is that it creates its own rules, and as long as it obeys those rules, you'll give it a free pass.
I had a really good point. That doesn't sound like me.
No, it doesn't.
Sure.
I know what he's talking about, so I'm going to disagree on that point.
No.
Well, I'm awake, so yeah.
It is a good point. It's the basic tenets of storytelling. When you create the rules within the universe, this is why The Walking Dead kind of works. Not so much for me anymore, but the rules.
I've actually started getting back into it recently, just as an aside. But
yeah, how far in are you?
Series 3 now.
Oh,
starting back up.
No, you're still in the good. You're still in the good end of that show.
I'm pleased to hear that.
But the reason Walking Dead works is because it set itself a set of rules and it doesn't break them. If suddenly you were having superheroes flying through The Walking Dead or UFOs land, it breaks those rules. If they crossed it over with
Invincible, it'd be rubbish.
It all falls apart, right?
Yeah.
But within Star Wars, in this sort of out there storytelling that we're talking about, if you drop an episode 9, an episode 6.5 and told the story after Jedi, but you broker the deal with the audience and say, look, it's going to be completely animated. It's going to be photorealistic, so there won't be characters there with big heads and little bodies. It's not going to be your Funko movie. It's going to be photorealistic. I think people will give it a free pass because they know that you're not trying to set digital characters alongside live action characters where they can readily fail. Mm-hmm. I think it would be successful, and I, for one, would like to see it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think as long as you know, like I say, as long as everything looks, as long as everything stacks up with each other within the presentation, then you can get away with much more stuff than it might seem.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. What a good call. Connor, a superb question again. So I'm sorry Steve isn't around to give his 2 pennyworth.
Steve's first love is Avatar. He may well go down that path.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
that's true. And that's a film. I know we give him a hard time for that, but that's a film that does kind of work. It's doing everything we've just spoken about, isn't it? You've got your live action elements.
And it also makes me look totally hypocritical.
No, not at all. It does work in all those ways. You have the hyper stylized characters that are gorgeous and you accept them on their own terms. And they do exist. And sometimes it's jarring, the scale, when you realise how big the Na'vi are next to the humans. Sometimes there's a little bit, oh my God, what's going on? But when you get used to it, they do
That's
hold
a good
up.
Separation, isn't it, at the same time?
Yeah.
That does give you, that separation gives you a good frame of, oh, hang on, that's us and that's them. Okay, yeah, alien species and all those. So, yeah, the compartmentalisation there is not the worst idea.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, actually, Paul, the compartmentalisation. And if we have that, if this movie is compartmentalised from the rest of Star Wars as its own thing, then it's free from the criticisms that are levelled at Tarkin, because if you put Tarkin alongside Ben Mendelsohn at certain moments, maybe that doesn't work as well as it should. Not in my estimation. I thought it passed the test, but at least if it's all that effect, you won't have that comparison to sort of trip it up. Great stuff. That was nice. Thanks, Connor and Leo. We'll catch up with you guys again next week. If you give me your address and details, I will forward this beautiful piece of art over to you. All right, so some Star Wars news. Star Wars animation. So we've got a couple of bits of news in the animation side of things. Star Wars Forces of Destiny is coming to Disney's YouTube channel on the 3rd of July for daily episodes leading up to the Disney Channel debut of the show on the 9th of July. So are you familiar with the Forces of Destiny and what this is?
I am now. I've just looked at it.
I am, yeah. I talked about it with the Tumble the Saber guys because it was announced during Celebration, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Did you see the footage at that point, Rob?
No, I hadn't. No.
Okay. Have you seen it since? What do you make of it?
I've seen images from it. I haven't seen it in motion, but I've seen stills from the videos.
It's pretty cool. It's a lot.
That's all right. Yeah.
Reminds me of is it Jendi Tartakovsky did the Clone Wars micro series before the Clone Wars?
Yeah. I can see that sort of comparison. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. It's not quite as Samurai Jack from what I've seen so far. The
no.
animation's a little bit more tempered.
Yes.
Than that, but yes. It's traditional sort of. It looks like traditional 2D hand drawn animation, but it follows some of the main characters. So Rey, Jin, Padme Amidala, Maz Kanata is in there. I know Hera and Sabine Wren, they pop up. Luke's in there, Anakin's in there, Yoda. There's loads of these things, but I think and Finn, and they're all voiced by the original actors. I think Shelby Young is doing the Princess Leia voice for the Princess Leia entry into the story. Young Leia, sort of a New Hope era Leia. So these are going to they're inside canon. They're not new canon. So they're
kind of tied into things, aren't they?
Yeah, so some of Rey's stuff where she's on Jakku still with the speeder and BB-8's being chased by goons. So it's almost like they're filling in the cracks in the existing story with these charming little tales. It's also going to be accompanied by a bunch of books and all the other paraphernalia. There's a range of action figures. I don't know if you saw those. Marc ran some images on the toy box this week. They look pretty cool.
They're like sort of doll size, right? Like the Elite series dolls in Disney Store.
Yes.
Yeah, I know the ones.
But there's a lot more soft elements to them. So their wardrobe is all soft material.
Okay.
And I think some of that stuff can be switched out. So Rey, you might be able to redress Rey to reflect the different costumes in The Force Awakens. Marc Airy did point out on the toy box that the scale looks a little bit off between the characters in Ahch-To and the characters in Yoda, and there's a Princess Leia from Endor with Wicket, and the scale seems to be a little bit off there.
Oh, I saw those. Yeah, that does seem a little bit...
But I do like the Yoda and the Wicket and the Ahch-To on their own. If you can buy them, I don't think you can buy them on their own. They come with like one of the main dolls, but if you could get those characters on their own, then they look fantastic. Especially the Wicket. I think he looks really cool. Paul, are you not a big fan of what you've seen of this?
Sorry,
not so much. No.
Yeah, sorry. Like I said, I'm too old.
Yeah,
set in my ways.
It's not for us, really, is it? Primarily,
no, of course not. Of course not. I hope the kids get knocked out. I mean, for me, this would have been Battle of the Planets in 1982 sort of situation, and I would have been addicted to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've seen this already with the different tones of this new Star Wars content. Like, we have our movies, and they're still very much the family movies that work on a number of levels. And then you drop down a gear on TV, and you've got Rebels, which still has some of those qualities in it, but it's definitely aimed at a younger audience. Drop down again, you've got the Lego Freemakers show, and now it looks like if you drop down again, you get this new show, this Forces of Destiny show.
Yeah.
And I think definitely appears to be aimed at a young female audience as well, I think, with the characters, the central characters all being the female leads. But pretty cool. So it comes to the YouTube channel on 3rd of July, runs up to the 9th when it moves over to the Disney Channel. And I think all in all it's about 40 minutes worth in the first season. Whether it'll go beyond that, I don't know. I hope it does. But that's still, it's going to be an interesting exercise anyway, especially with this release on YouTube. Okay, so the next piece of animation news this week is that Star Wars Rebels Season 3 has got a Blu-ray and DVD release of August 29th, which is US, but the previous Rebels releases have all been their Blu-rays have been free of region-specific codes. So I imagine if it's released in the US, you can import it and still watch it on UK machines.
What's a Blu-ray?
Yeah, exactly. You're still in the DVD realm, aren't you, mate?
I'm back.
Is
by
it
the way.
the same as
Steve,
Betamax?
welcome back, mate. It is like Betamax, Paul.
It's
yeah,
a bit like Betamax.
with
Cool.
less tape involved.
It's got better tracking.
Actually,
yeah.
it is like Betamax. You're exactly right, because Betamax was the better version of VHS and Betamax.
How can
As was
Betamax be the better
Blu-ray
version of
and-
VHS?
On a technical
Because-
level, it was more. It had more. It was more capable, but actually
Yeah.
didn't get the mass market appeal.
It wasn't
Well, you
a
know
version
why,
of
don't you?
VHS.
Because VHS had the porn market,
Exactly, yeah. And
That's usually
that's
the
right.
first one, isn't it?
And
Yeah.
ET.
and you had HD DVD, which actually was, the same kind of deal. But there you go.
Was it superior? Was HD DVD superior to Blu-ray?
No, but it was related
I thought technically it was, and it was.
Was it?
It was at one point. It was outselling Blu-ray quite considerably, and then I think it was a few movie studios in a row went to Blu-ray,
Yeah,
and
that's it.
the tide just started to swing vastly in the other direction, and then it was really quick. It went from outselling 2-1 to completely dead in the water. HD DVD really seemingly within a matter of months.
Did
Very
Toshiba
odd.
have a part to play in that? Didn't Toshiba produce
Yeah,
a
that's-
machine?
Yeah,
They were
you're
the
right.
HD DVD pioneers. I think they were
Were
the
they?
big ones with the big stake in it, much like Sony was with Blu-rays.
Right. And did the PlayStation having Blu-ray on board, did that do anything to tip the scales?
That had Blu-ray
bit.
on board, didn't it? But the Xbox you had to buy a separate drive.
Yeah, well, actually, one of the things that it worked in PlayStation's favour was obviously they made the discs, so they got kind of a good access to the distribution when it came to printing.
Right.
So when it came to getting their movies made, they had a good chance of getting exactly what they wanted whenever they wanted it because they set the terms. But actually, that sometimes ended up with problems because for reasons
It
that are
was,
probably quite
it
boring on
was,
the
there
Star
we
Wars.
go. Mark's right. Toshiba actually just created the HD DVD
Yeah,
as a product. It wasn't Microsoft, sorry.
no,
Um,
it was
but it
Microsoft
was
were on
the-
board with it because they had an expansion drive for the Xbox 360 that plugged in, didn't
Yeah, that's it. And it was,
Anyway, Star
digital
Wars
video
Rebels
camera.
is available on this format. Yeah.
yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Star Wars Rebels coming to Blu-ray, not HD DVD, but is definitely going to be available on DVD, and I'm guessing video
Yes.
on demand around about the same
I've
time.
heard-
Oh, video on
DVD.
demand, it's been out for ages, mate.
What?
That's how I've seen it. Rebels.
Season 3. Oh yes, because it
Yeah,
is
I've seen
released
it.
straight into iTunes
On a 3-week delay.
in a serial.
And I'm with
ridiculous.
Paul. It does nothing for me at all, but I totally appreciate why the kids like it.
Yeah,
Oh, Rebels.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
cool.
I've even
I never,
tried.
wait,
The
I
latest
never
one.
mentioned Rebels.
Not Rebels, sorry. The
Blu-rays.
Star Wars Force of Destiny. Or
Oh,
the Rebel. Yeah, what Paul was talking about.
Force of Destiny, yeah.
Force of Destiny.
I say, but to be fair, it's not primarily aimed at us, so that's fair enough.
Yeah, I'm not taking anything away from it.
No, not at all.
I used to love that stuff when I was young, and you just, like Paul said, some things you can never get back, and that's sad for us.
Yeah. No. Well, I think
I've decided I love it and I want to watch all of them.
I will be definitely watching it. But
I'll go around Mark's house.
I was watching. I did watch for the first few episodes of Lego Freemaker Adventures, and then I realised it wasn't really going to do an awful lot for me, so I kind of fell off of that. But I do appreciate the artistry that goes into it, and it's nice to see Star Wars as a
Am I right in
franchise sort of
saying
catering to everybody.
Is
Sorry,
it
Steve.
pointing towards a more female?
I think so, from the looks of things. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
More of
the
it's something
girlies.
more for the female audience. I think.
Maybe I will
Yeah.
watch it then.
Have you seen Lego
All right.
Snoke, by the way?
Yes.
He's
Yeah.
got Jedi capes on.
What?
He's got Jedi colours. All beige and brown and so on.
It's a gold robe. It's a gold robe.
It
that
looks
he's
very
wearing.
Jedi to me.
How big is it?
They're saying that it's going to
74
likely
feet
be
The figure, Steve. The actual figure. You want to see the cardboard that goes on the back of it, man.
No, he's
They're,
got dark robes on here. One I'm looking at.
So in The
Is it
Force
Lego
Awakens.
or is it just is it just a still from the movie?
It's just watching The
Probably
Force
looking at
Awakens.
Playmobil.
All right, let's move on to some Last Jedi news then. So, yesterday, a behind the scenes feature sort of leaked out a couple of images from The Last Jedi, behind the scenes stuff. So the first one we get is Rey, Daisy Ridley running along Ahch-To, which I think is the scene in the trailer where you see her sprinting.
I think that is.
And this is with the Force FX lightsabers. It's given a...
that seems like it's from the... it's a different camera angle on the same sequence. Same as Phasma, actually.
Yeah,
they don't look like new shots to me. They look like repurposed same shots.
I think they're behind the scenes footage. I don't think they're actual... So it looks like a different angle, but it's because there's somebody, like a documentarian on set, filming this stuff. And it's sort of hinting at what we might be seeing at D23 from Last Jedi, some of the behind-the-scenes stuff like those. They do those beautifully produced sort of sizzle reels, don't they, with that beautiful music. Do you remember that thing from The Force Awakens that they played? With Mark Hamill sort of talking over it about practical effects. That's great. I think it might be something like that. So a sizzle reel that will show us a bit of what's going on set and intercut with some of the polished, finally produced stuff. But what you're not seeing in this image in the show notes is you can, in another clip of this, you can see the tip of the lightsaber, and it's a Force FX one. You know, they've got like the little pointed tip that doesn't put the light out the same way as the actual main blade of the Force FX sabers, just to sort of hit Rey or hit Daisy Ridley with the specular light off of that practical prop, and then they do the rotoscope of the actual blade in later. And the Phasma one seems to be a very high angle, doesn't it? From whatever's going on there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting couple of shots.
It makes me wonder if it's going to be a tracking shot that pans down from up top. The kind of the sort of explosion in the sort of doorway comes, like we're sort of looking at it from top down, and it explodes outwards, and then the camera pans down to the sort of squad coming in. So you see Phasma first, and the camera lingers on Phasma, and then as it comes down, you see she's got a squad behind her.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
Anything they do with her will be pretty cool. If they just give her a bit more screen time than she got in The Force Awakens, would be something else.
It's a tough one not to exceed.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I wonder if some of this stuff sort of coming out now, setting the stage for The Last Jedi to be centrally focused on in the D23 sessions, because they might spend a little bit less time on Han Solo now than initially intended. Yeah.
But there might not be as much to report, as it were. Because, we don't know what the results of Ron's kind of they'd have
been shooting for best part of a week again by the time D23 rolls out. So
So they are doing. Are they reshooting now? Or
no. Just
that'd be what's left of principal.
Reconvening principal photography.
There must be some reshoots.
Well, we don't know yet.
They've got scheduled pickups later in the year, but Ron Howard's spending the next couple of weeks sort of looking at what they've already got.
Yeah.
Then they're going to go back into
thousands and thousands of footage to go through. So
yeah.
Can I ask a question? Like, it's a bit contentious, I guess. Isn't this okay? Does it bode well for what they've done so far that Ron Howard's even picked it up? Because if it's like a crowning turd in the water pipe, would you even go near it with a barge pole?
No, I don't think you would. I think the fact that he is willing to do it suggests that it's not as bad as everybody thinks.
Or they're paying him so much money that he can't say no. And also, if it does fail, it ain't really his fault. I
don't know. I mean, someone like Ron Howard, I honestly didn't expect him to step up to this because of so much of it being done. But I think he must feel that there's still a way for him to be able to put his own.
Would he have seen it, do you think, before he said yes?
He would have seen the script, and he would have had an idea from.
Probably would have had a rough edit.
No, I don't think I don't know how much he would have seen at that point, because what they're saying is
just script and storyboarding. Then
script and storyboards, and I'm pretty sure from what I'm hearing, I don't know how much of this we're going to go over in the show notes, but from what I hear, so Kathleen Kennedy had some rough footage cut together, and that started to sort of reveal some tonal issues. We'll go through all that in a minute, but I think with Ron coming on board, he would have made his decision based on what Kathy and Lawrence wanted to achieve, and then the script. And then he can go now and he can take stock of the material he's got to work with so far. And if he can edit around what's already been made, what's already been shot, and continue to shoot the rest of the scheduled photography, principal photography, then he might be able to put together a Ron Howard movie from the material that's already been gathered. And this speaks to George's ethos about filmmaking way back in the day. Was the actual gathering of the material is the frustrating part for him. The editing together of the material is where he makes the movie.
He's got previous ties with Lucasfilm anyway, hasn't he? So
he has, going back sort of 45 years to American Graffiti.
And he's a huge fan of Star Wars as well.
And he's made his statement quite clear that he's looking forward to coming on and delivering on the promise of the Han Solo movie. So it's what Kathy. I don't think it's ethical for Kathy to say, "Look at what the boys have done. You're interested?" and them saying no and wandering off. It's much more to say to a filmmaker, "This is what we want to achieve," and them say, "Yeah, I can do that for you. Well, this is the material we've got already. Go and get the rest." That's how I understand the events as they've played out so far. But now we're on the subject. Should we just jump into the Han Solo news, because we're going to cover some of these bits now. All right. A lot of people have heard of it though this past week or so, Paul. So it turns out Alden Ehrenreich was partially responsible for letting Kathleen Kennedy know that there were issues with the tone of Han Solo. So I can't remember how much of this we discussed last week. I don't think Alden's role in this whole thing was public when we recorded last week.
Is this speculation though?
No, I don't think it is at this point. It's come from
miffed.
It's come. Yeah, I think that's pretty much.
It's the acting coat thing.
Yeah, there's some of that. But I think what was happening was he was being asked to do things with the Han Solo character on set
that were out of character,
that didn't fit with the tone as he understood it. So he made a comment to a producer and said, "I think there's an issue here with the tone, with the tone of the character I'm crafting. It's not what I initially thought it was going to be." Now, if you look at, that was more than just a speaker mic.
Rob's left.
He's out of here.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Yeah. If you look at the current climate, the world we live in, if Alden Ehrenreich hadn't said anything and this film come out, who would be criticised for Han Solo? It would be him, right? He's going to shoulder the burden of this thing.
Yeah.
All right then,
so
Chewie.
He raised his concerns about the tone to a producer who then went to Kathy Kennedy. Now the next point on the show notes is word is from the set that Kathy Kennedy cut some available footage together, and it had a more comedic tone than expected. Now we touched on this a little bit when we were talking about it last week, that you can't, just by seeing individual scenes, you can't really get a tone for something until you splice a bunch of scenes together and then you see the thread that runs through. If it's, Rob, you said drama, comedian. If you don't cut the comedy with something, then you end up with Spaceballs, right? You don't want to be too broad with this thing.
Or Guardians of the Galaxy, which is what I think they're trying to achieve.
But the problem is Guardians of the Galaxy is set out to be a comedy and doesn't actually. Funny enough, I watched a video about this today, and the guy was contrasting the Marvel movies about how they handle comedy and how they handle drama, and how a moment of comedy could ruin a really dramatic moment. The example he used was Doctor Strange, where I don't know who's seen it.
I have.
Cast.
I have, yes.
So the bit where he puts his cape on, and he's got this really intense look in the mirror, and then the cape just kind of gives his face a little stroke.
Yeah.
He was saying that takes you out of the drama, and it's like when you look at something like he contrasted it with Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
With the jazz scene.
No, from the first Spider-Man, the one where he drops his glasses and clenches his fist, and it's like he's kind of accepting, who he's become and what he's going to be.
Yeah.
And there's no comedic cut there that sort of breaks the drama, and as a result, it's more impactful.
Great examples.
And Guardians of the Galaxy is just, almost constant comedy because it's set out to be. I don't think that's what they wanted for Han Solo. And I think that's the problem. I think they've gone in and they've cut together a comedy movie with a dramatic plot, whereas actually they wanted a drama with some comedy Rogue One has some funny moments, but it's not a comedy movie.
Well, none of the Star Wars films have got any comedy in them, I don't think. The original 7 does.
They're really funny.
They have humour.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not. I wasn't sitting there laughing in the cinema.
No, well, not always, but I think a lot of that is hindsight, Steve. Patent pending. I think that a lot of that is us sitting here now and going, I don't remember laughing, but in the moment you might have been. It's hard to tell because
we were about 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah, but the point that's exactly the point, Steve, is you don't sit back and think about those amazing jokes, but if you saw them, you'd go, I remember that. That's pretty funny.
There's a really important point in here because it does. There's a point here to be made about Han Solo. And what we have with Guardians of the Galaxies, we have characters that exist in that. It's like you were saying earlier on, Rob, about the animation, about creating rules for yourself and playing by those rules and don't break those rules. Guardians only has to play that tone. They don't have a responsibility to anything else. If there was another movie that existed with Star-Lord at the centre of it and it was a horrific R-rated drama, then you have a problem because no one knows what version of Star-Lord they need to gear up for, right? You have conflict of tones, even in different movies rather than just in the same movie or the same scene. With Star Wars, with the OT of Star Wars, you have comedic elements or you have humour in that movie, but there's humour with dignity. And I did use Han as an example in one of the Kessel Run episodes about how if you watch Han deal with some of the stuff he deals with in Empire, a lot of the humour comes from that character trying to get himself out of the trouble that he's in, flying by the seat of his pants, all of that stuff on the Falcon, the banter between him and 3PO.
Even running around the Death Star in A New Hope.
There's definitely stuff there as well, like the turning the corner and the stormtroopers being there in the original version when there was only a few stormtroopers.
3 of them, and then 12,000.
Yeah. There's a difference there. But yeah, there is that stuff, and sort of Chewie. The humour comes from like Chewie stopping and not going all the way around the corner with Han, right? And knowing he's sort of one step ahead of Han in a way. That character has humorous moments, but he maintains its dignity. Because he plays by a certain set of rules. He's playing the drama of the scene. He's not playing the comedy of the scene. And so that character gets to retain some dignity. With Han Solo in the Han Solo movie, if he's in those awkward situations and he's flying by the seat of his pants, maybe hubris and bravado takes over and he gets himself into situations he can't get out of. Think Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is the best template for how to build a Han Solo movie. When you have Han fighting that swordsman, when you have Indy fighting that swordsman, and he just says, "I'm not today," and pulls the gun and shoots the guy down, that's a wonderful comedic moment. It's funny, but it's true to the character, and the character is playing the drama of the scene.
Arab.
Not for him, no. The character's playing the drama of the scene, not the humour. And from what I'm hearing and what's in the show notes is that Han has an Ace Ventura-like quality in some of the footage Kathy saw.
If that's true, that's awful.
That's the character playing the humour, not playing the drama.
That's a complete disconnect.
I think that is because it all relates to the acting coach thing. I think Alden Ehrenreich possibly can't do comedy that well or subtle comedy. They get in the coach because he might be looking like a character from Ace Ventura
and becomes a caricature of himself.
This is the thing, though, Steve.
Maybe they go, oh, we're going to get an acting coach in because I don't think you're quite getting what we want. And then he's kind of, he's going like, well, hang on, why am I even doing this? This doesn't seem like it fits. And then so he goes and asks the question. Yeah.
Why is my ability being called into question? I'm doing what I'm asked. You need to look closely at what's being asked of me. And, he doesn't need an acting coach because he's not there to play the comedy. He's there to play the drama, and the comedy should be constructed around that. That's how Han retains
never went out
his dignity.
To be funny, did he?
No,
Han
exactly.
Never set out. He's being serious when he did his funny things.
Exactly my point. And, just look at in the original trilogy is peppered with it, and a lot of it's scripted. But a lot of it is Harrison Ford, and now that he's such a charismatic man, that's coming off of him in waves.
One thing's for sure, we're all going to be a lot thinner.
Yeah, it's little throwaway lines like that, played completely straight, but it's things like the moment in Jedi that I think probably the most comedic we see Han in is in Jedi when he's going after the scout troop and he steps on a twig and he kind of rolls his eyes and looks up and he's already revealed his presence.
Yeah.
But never does any character in Star Wars, with the possible exception of one actually, never do they play the comedy. Jar Jar is the closest you get to a character that plays the comedy in the scene, and we know how that turned out, right?
Again, 3PO is incidental to whatever R2 does.
Yeah.
Even though, look what happened to me. It's hilarious.
Now, if you ask,
but it's actually tragic.
If you ask George if you ask George about Jar Jar, he'd say, well, 3PO was Jar Jar in the original movies.
Yes.
But
R2 and 3PO were supposed to be Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see. I see.
Yeah, a droid that isn't sentient and just is probably got a funny program, but not that funny.
Yeah, and
It's not nothing like Jar Jar.
It's not joke with C-3PO, is it? It's situational with him. It's
but it's his anger with R2 that is.
Yeah.
He's wrong. R2 is virtually right on every occasion, but it's C-3PO's pompous attitude to R2 that becomes the ongoing joke. That's the thing.
Yes.
And that was always planned by Lucas. I mean, Lucas originally wanted those two to be the stars. So.
And actually, part of the reason, obviously, with the full saga in front of us, part of the reason is because R2 knows more than 3PO does, because R2's memory has not been wiped.
Yeah.
He's got more history to draw on, whereas C-3PO is like, what are you talking about?
3PO was a kid's project, so...
Yeah,
well,
does,
but,
R2 does become sort of this long-suffering hero, doesn't he? Where it's like, oh God, no, I've got
because
this.
We only
this
get
guy's
bits
been
and
rebooted
wheezes,
again.
we actually don't know how wise R2 is. He's still quite a mystery to us.
Yeah, and we've said before. Well, I've said before that I think he might be the most heroic character in all of Star Wars. He's always quick to act selflessly. And you're right. The comedy does come from those two, their interaction, and it's very situational. But they never really play the line, the comedy. They never really play the laugh. And I'm getting the impression that that's precisely what Phil Lord and Chris Miller were doing on this movie.
Yeah,
was they were trying to get the characters to play the laugh, and they were going off script a lot to do it. Which is
big fans of improv, aren't they?
They're big fans of improv.
What we were saying last week, because what I was saying when we were saying, I think I can't remember who it was, but somebody suggested that it must be down to the script as well. But I said no, it's not. It's not that simple because
they do about 8 takes on each piece, don't they? So
yeah, they do, and you can do things with, like I said last week, you can do things with facial expressions that will change the
tone.
What's it called? Tone. You can do things with glances that can change the tone. You can do things with,
which again allegedly there was a lot of.
Yeah, that's it.
Go on, Steve.
I think this goes back to the original problem, right? And why they should have used Anthony Ingruber. Because you can't ever have any actor in the world playing Han Solo without everyone seeing Harrison Ford and wanting Harrison Ford and needing Harrison Ford. So if you try and play it any other way where you're not trying to be like Harrison Ford, it's not Star Wars. So
this is what we're suspecting is what's going on, is that they've realised, oh no, this is not what we wanted. This is not, clearly there's a disconnect between what Lord and Miller thought the movie should be and what Lucasfilm wanted from the movie.
But do you think there's a chance that Alden is just not Harrison Ford enough?
No, I think actually, Steve, you would find that if Ingruber got the part, because actually there's clickbaits doing the rounds that are saying, oh, they're going to get rid of Alden and Ingruber's going to step in, like, grow up.
No way.
I don't mean you, Steve. I mean these clickbait places.
I agree. I don't think that's right. But I think retrospectively they might have done.
I think if you bring him in now, what you'd probably find is you might find he's, all love to the guy, but he might be worse.
And people will know what the reason is then. I think, though, with hindsight, they would have probably gone the other way. Nothing to do with Alden. I'm not taking anything away from him.
I don't agree.
I disagree completely.
I don't think we've seen enough from Anthony Ingruber to suspect that he's any better a performer than Alden Ehrenreich at this point. I think
not from an actor perspective, but he has got the looks of.
He looks a bit.
acting.
Yeah, that's not enough.
No, it's
not. It's absolutely not.
It's really not enough. It's they have to be able to do more. And personally, I think what we're hearing from the set about Alden's ability to sort of step up and say, no, that's not right. I'm doing what I'm asked to do.
Yeah.
And if you're not liking the tone, it's because the tone's wrong, not my performance. I think I've even got more faith in the casting of Alden Ehrenreich at this point, because of the integrity that I'm getting from these reports. I'm getting a lot of integrity from the guy over having a clear idea of what's expected from Han Solo in this film and how that differs from what they were producing together as director and actor. And remember, there's more than just the guy in the black waistcoat who's being Han Solo. It's the guy that writes the words that goes in his mouth, and it's the guy that tells him how to say those words. So that, between them, they need to create a Han Solo that passed that litmus test. We won't get it if the directors are on a different page from everybody else, because they're not going to give you the version of that character that you need to tell that story if it's all Ace Ventura style broad comedy. I don't think that's a casting issue. I think it's definitely a decision made by the director.
Ventura scares me, because that's like I never would have guessed that's what people would be equating it to.
It's too broad, isn't it? My initial fear was, oh no, they're going to go like they're going to go Spaceballs with it, but this sounds like they've gone even further.
Like where he's a bit slapstick.
Too slapstick, and like I was saying,
I went back and I watched a bit of Ace Ventura the other day, and man, if that's how they were going, it's just awful.
Yeah,
but it's an awful fit, because he's a scenery chewer in that film by design, and that's the whole point, and it works for Ace Ventura because it's Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey.
Brilliant,
but absolutely.
I don't think they're giving us a specific. To be honest, I think they're giving us an extreme comparison.
Where did you hear the Ace Ventura?
Yeah, but what I mean is, if that's the kind of tone they're aiming for, they're way off the mark.
Again, I don't think that's the case. Seriously,
where did we hear?
You think that's okay?
Bit?
No, I don't think that's okay at all. I just don't think. I think they're using the words to say, look, it's like, it's an exaggeration to enforce a term.
That's what I just said.
Yeah,
that's what I just said. They're going for an Ace Ventura feel. But even then, I'm not saying they're going literally Ace Ventura, but if they're going for that feel, it's way off base.
Yeah, I think what Paul's suggesting is the people reporting this from the set are being hyperbolic when they say it's having some Ace Ventura like
Kessel Run.
Oh, is that where it's come from, the set then?
Here's a worry, right? Mm-hmm. Here's my worry.
We were creating it all.
I'd forgotten how over the top and scene stealing and scene chewing rather Ace Ventura was. What if they were underselling it because they've forgotten too?
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was worse than Ace Ventura.
Yeah, so what we haven't heard and what we might hear after release is, obviously the rest of the cast, what their feel was at the time. But obviously there's NDAs and things in place we're not going to know. We're only going to hear from the horse's mouth based on the actual situation. So obviously Alden Ehrenreich was directly involved. He's going to voice. Kathleen Kennedy's involved. She's going to voice. You might hear a lot more information from the likes of Woody Harrelson in about 12 months from now. So
maybe.
I wonder if the Ace Ventura reference is actually not so much about comedy, but the fact, how Ace Ventura rolls in and takes control of every scene. No, I don't mean from what you mentioned, Rob. I mean actually takes control, butts in conversations.
Oh, okay.
That side of it.
Ooh,
and is loud. Maybe that is the Ace Ventura side they're talking about.
Yeah, not the broad comedy, but the person that's center of every scene. Yeah.
Yeah, like strolling around, looking at people, what they're doing, like he's in charge. Maybe that was the brief they gave Alden, that he's a young lad who thinks he's ruling the galaxy.
Do you know what else concerns me is you get a lot of actors that spoil takes and things. Have you ever heard of this, where they'll deliberately destroy a take because it's not a performance that they want to end up in the final cut?
Yep.
So even if the director says, look, can we just do it? You've done it the way it's on the script. Can you do it this way for me? And then we'll see, when we get in the edit, we'll see how it works. And the actor will do it, but then they'll destroy it by looking straight into camera or something. You know, they'll do something that ruins continuity because they don't want the director's version to end up in the scene. And it worries me that perhaps Alden was being asked to do stuff like that. You know, like we've got the script version, we've got the locked version. Now, if you could do this one where you just mug, like roll your eyes or, you know, whatever that didn't seem right, if that's what the directors were going for, just give us the larger performance for us, just so we know we've got it, you know. And if a director doesn't win a performer's confidence and trust, they're not going to get the best from them. And I wonder if that was part of the problem here, that he didn't trust what was being asked of him. And when they strung these dailies together and they were seeing just how wide the guys were going, the guys were going with it, that would have rattled a few nerves.
One thing to bear in mind as well is we sort of see the notes say, you know, he's responsible for letting them know. We assume he's kind of gone to her on the sly and just gone, you know, have a word. Yeah. But it's entirely possible it was just, you know, there's some sort of routine check-in with everybody involved, and they're like, you know, is there?
You can probably imagine that happens on a daily basis, sure.
Yeah, totally. Like they talk to the directors and they're like, yeah, everything's great. We're really happy.
$multi-million budget. They're going to be concerns every day.
Sure.
How are we feeling, guys? And blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. And then sort of he says, you know, can I have, you got 5 minutes just to sort of have a chat? Or
she's taking it to him. I understand there was a problem yesterday. Can you be, well, to be honest?
Yeah, possibly, yeah. Yeah, it's not just yesterday, that sort of thing.
I didn't want to take my shirt off and flick my hair up.
And say, alrighty then, Lando.
I never thought Han Solo should be wearing this tutu. All right, we got a couple more.
That was it. They said, it's not. No, Ace Ventura would be a bit of a stretch. It's more like The Mask. Oh God!
He had a big cartoon hammer on the bridge of the Falcon. It just wasn't working.
Yeah, have you heard of Timmy Mallet?
Yeah. So there's a couple more Han Solo bits, and then I want to ask you guys an important question. So Bob Iger commented about Han Solo. He was cornered at LA Airport by TMZ, and they asked him if he felt the Han Solo film was in trouble, and he said no. And they asked Bob Iger if he felt there would be a delay in the release, and he said, I am not going to comment on that right now.
Because he can't judge it right now. He's got to see how Ron gets on for the next, probably, 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, Ron might turn around and go,
that decision. Because it's a massive marketing decision, isn't it?
Yeah, Ron might turn around and go, you know what, I'm going to need to do redo quite a bit of this stuff. And then they go, okay, you're going to need more time.
Yeah. Because
they're not going to rush this movie.
No.
Just to get it out.
You'll get that information in about 6 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
We might even get it at D23. It might be a really quick trigger pull where they say to him, how is the footage? How is it shaping up? If you got, if they are doing 3 takes, one off the script, one for the actors, one for the directors, when he sifts through all the footage that he's got off the script, he might say, no, we've got nothing to worry about. This is fine. I can build something with this. We can complete principal photography. We'll just jettison all the bits where we do the broad comedy or we do the winks at the camera. We'll jettison all that. We'll just do the straight shoot off the script. When we put this together, we'll be fine. And then all the concerns are laid to rest. But he might say, no, there's not enough here to work with. While we're geared up for principal photography, we might as well go back and retake some of this stuff now and put it together. So that will be, by the time we get to D23, they might have a good idea of how they're going to hit, whether they're going to hit the release window or if they have to push it back.
Well, that would be a good time to do it as well, because isn't that partly a trade show and investor conference as well?
It is, yeah.
So that would be a good time to kind of, to temper that sort of issue. Yeah. Is to say, look, we're going to sort of come out and say it. Obviously, what happened with changing directors, and he's gone in and he's had a chance to look at the footage, and this, based on his estimates, because he only needs estimates at that point. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need to say this will take me exactly 3 months, 4 weeks and 2 days to fix. He can say, I don't know, 3 to 4 months. Yeah. And then go, all right, we don't really have that long, so we'll have to push it back 6, something like that.
Yeah.
So that, they,
depending on the situation of the footage they've got to redo.
Exactly.
It could be internal. It's like, Christ, we've got to build that set again. We've got to get the studio time again.
Yeah,
okay, can we get that crew back?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the other thing as well, isn't it?
Shooting a movie is really, really big.
How much of this
exactly.
movie will need to be saved in the edit bay, and how much of it will be resolved in camera?
I don't know. I'm expecting a bit of a patchwork quilt, to be honest, on this.
It's highly possible. I don't know if we'll ever know.
Depending on how much, if I'd rather they delay the release.
I would rather they get it right, whatever that takes. So if it means delay, then great. But if they think they can do it without, then great.
The delay
I have my doubts.
Delay might do Nine some favours as well if it has a knock-on effect. Might
Possibly.
give them some time to push that back and give them some time to work out.
Make 9 a Christmas movie.
Yeah. And work out how to address the lack of
I
carry.
haven't even heard about the issues on 9. Crikey, it gets worse.
There aren't any. That's what they're saying. What you're saying is, it gives them a chance to think about how they want to handle the Leia situation. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Gives them more time to get that, to give that some more thought.
There's still only one production company involved. Don't forget. So
yeah, exactly.
But we're moving on to Colin Trevorrow anyway, aren't we?
We are. Yeah. The last thing on Han Solo is this really charismatic tweet from Chris Miller, who just re-emerged after all the events of their firing with a tweet that said "situation normal," which I thought was really well judged. A little tweet.
What does that mean, though? Is that being sarcastic?
No, because nothing out of the ordinary has really happened here.
Yeah, he's just they've moved on from the project. They're back to their normal daily lives. They've got a ton of stuff that they're producing. They're producing several TV shows, including Serial and Last Man on Earth, and they've got movies. They've got the Flash project they could return to. They've got the animated Spider-Man movie that they're doing. So they've got a lot going on. It wasn't just Star Wars.
But even in relation to what happened on the Solo movie, this does. I mean, okay, it's crazy. Most of us live in a standard, job, employed, out of work, and so on. And you're fired, and it's unbearable. We can't take it. But in this environment, these things happen all the time.
Yeah, this was just one in a number of jobs.
And this is also not, you're fired. This is we can't reconcile this difference. Yeah. So, and I'm sure they had some sort of, they've probably got a decent contract that says
that's the thing. That's what I was going.
Paid,
Mr. Mrs.
they'll get paid for their time.
Jobs. They've got big problems. These guys have got 20 things lined up already.
Yeah, they'll have been paid for their time thus far, and they'll probably get some sort of severance for.
Oh, it's a golden handshake without doubt. Yeah,
the DGA rules seem to imply that they get the rest of their salary.
Oh wow! Okay, that's incredibly well. That's incredibly well.
Yeah, that'll be the guild. Yes, without doubt.
Yeah.
They probably shot 75% plus of the film.
Because it's not like we're saying, Steve. It's not
Why
fired.
Was he fired, Mark?
Lord and Miller, the directors.
Yeah, no, Chris.
That's Chris Miller from Lord and Miller. He's one of the directors that went. So, yeah, it was. It's not fired like you and I. It's not like it's just them saying that you're no longer working on this project, and they walk away with their complete salary. There's probably a deal been done for credit, probably a deal been done to cover residuals. So it's not like, the sky doesn't fall for these people. They're working at a different level to us. What
we need is Ron Howard to come out and say, actually, the footage I've seen is remarkable and amazing. Do you know what I mean? You do, though, don't you?
Well,
there are some issues that we're going to
Can you honestly imagine it going the other way? Because there's no way one director is going to crap on another director.
No. But he might be. Normally, I would expect if it wasn't that good.
Well, we get Ron Howard fired in a few weeks and Joe Johnson.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. It'll either be it's all good or nothing.
Yeah, and I imagine it's going to be all good because what do you want to do right now? You want to build consumer confidence in this movie. You've got a fan base watching it now under a microscope.
Yeah, and annoyingly, the clickbait rags have run it through the ground as well, pretty undeservedly.
So what they need is a really good trailer now.
I thought you meant the clickbait rags. What they need is a good kicking.
Yeah, that's not far from the truth.
Don't you think, though? Do you think we need a really good trailer? Go, oh my God, that looks amazing.
I think that would be incredibly bold right now. And there is a precedence for this, which is, we'd already discussed him once, James Gunn and the Guardians of the Galaxy. They were only shooting for a week before they had something put together for Comic-Con. And this film's been shooting for months. And if we're to be believed, somewhere north of 75% of principal photography is done. So there's no reason why Ron's first job couldn't be put together a short trailer with existing footage that broadcasts the sky.
Or even a sizzle reel.
Even a sizzle, yeah. The sky isn't falling. What's been done so far is fine. I've been coming to right the ship, to put it back on course, because Lord and Miller couldn't come around to the Lucasfilm way of thinking, so they moved on. It wasn't a disaster. It's not like Rogue One 40% reshoots. This is the footage we've got. It's great. It's charming. Whatever. Get it out there. You're right, Steve. They need to get that out now, because it says, don't lose faith in us. Every decision we've made now is about what's right for this movie, what's right for the character of Han Solo, and not what's right for Lucasfilm or Lord and Miller. You know, it would be the right thing to do at D23, is cut something together, get it out there, and say, panic not. We're just changing the tone. This is what you're going to get. I think that would be extraordinary.
So.
Whether they do it or not, I don't know, but that would be the right thing to do at this point. All right, I want to throw this out. We don't have to spend too long on it, just sort of 10 minutes or so. With everything that's happened over the past week or so, with the boys leaving Han Solo and the questions about Kathy's decision to appoint them in the first place, there's been a lot of negative press around this film, a lot of negative press around Lucasfilm, around Kathy as a producer. It's built on top of the negative press that started back with Josh Trank, and then the re-edit of Rogue One, the introduction of Tony Gilroy on Rogue One. Can Colin Trevorrow and Star Wars Episode 9, can it survive now in the current climate, in light of what happened to Colin's most recent movie, The Book of Henry, which was taking a critical pounding in the past couple of weeks?
Torn apart.
Yes.
Or is this a good time for Colin to sort of say, you know what, I can't take another failure, and Lucasfilm say, we can't take another negative reception to one of our productions, so part companies and plop someone in the director's chair that people have more confidence in? What do you guys think?
What's he done wrong then?
I'll
so
go
far?
last.
Well, Colin Trevorrow, the only thing that's happened so far, Steve, is that his latest film, Book of Henry, has been critically slammed for being terrible.
Been slaughtered. Absolutely slaughtered. Seriously.
Remind me what that. I've seen the trailer for that. What's it about again?
But it's like a family. There's some comedic elements in it. It's a family film, and it's not like for families. There's a family at the centre of it, and there's some sort of child abuse in there. But it's tonally, people are concerned that the child abuse elements of the story don't sit with the lighter tone of the movie, and that's kind of what. I mean, it's got a Metacritic score of like 30%. I think Rotten Tomatoes is about 23%. It's just been.
So prior to this,
slammed.
Why was Trevorrow ticked?
Jurassic World.
Of course, right.
Safety Not Guaranteed was his indie movie. Jurassic World was his huge blockbuster movie.
Right, okay. So
Everything
that's
seemed to point
the two
to a
parts
good
of the
fit.
CV which could point him in the direction. Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And Lucasfilm have this proclivity now for taking directors on their way up and making them stars. It's like the kingmaker part of Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they tried it with Josh Trank. It didn't work. For whatever reason, the production of Rogue One led to a more experienced director of Tony Gilroy coming in and
So,
helping.
I mean, your question, is it only coming from that side of the fence?
What do you mean, Paul?
You're saying should Colin Trevorrow leave Star Wars? You're not saying should he be pushed from Star Wars?
No, not should he be pushed, because at this point, what has he done wrong, really?
There isn't anything wrong,
But
technically.
then the question of why should he leave is also moot.
Well, he's
Surely.
got to make another film sometimes. He can't just give up directing.
No, I agree, but to your point, Rob,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's true, because we're at a point where everybody's taking aim at Lucasfilm and Star Wars now, in light of everything
Almost
that's
for
happened
fun.
since Trank, Rogue One, and now Han Solo.
Right.
And I just think that it's painting there's a huge crosshair now on both Colin Trevorrow and the production of Episode 9, with people waiting in the wings to start throwing fruit.
So let's spin the coin back towards you, Mark.
Right.
And I want to hear your thoughts first.
All right. Is everyone all right with me airing my opinions first? I think right now, it would be in Colin Trevorrow's best interest to leave episode 9. I don't necessarily think it's in episode 9's best interests, but I do think it's in his, because I don't think his career will survive another critical pounding. And I also think it's in Lucasfilm's best interest if they replace Trevorrow amicably with a more experienced director that people have more confidence in, because I don't think they can survive, or they will survive. That's not fair, but they will take unnecessary damage from another troubled production.
Do you think it's too big a vehicle for him to be jumping on after the current bomb, basically?
No, I think he'd do perfectly well with
so
it.
why do you think he should leave?
Because I don't think he could stand another negative.
Well, it's just going to give him the impetus not to fail.
The thing about that, Mark, is I think the people who are in the wings to pick holes are going to be there, whoever's in charge.
Yeah.
And actually, if they didn't shut up when Rogue One turned out to be awesome, they'll never shut up.
No.
And the worst thing you can do with people like that is kowtow to them, because as soon as you do that, you give them power they don't deserve. So actually what they should do is hold fire, carry on as normal. One thing to keep in mind is he gets to write and direct this. Book of Henry didn't.
Yeah.
So he's actually just directing that one. Somebody else wrote the script. So if there's a problem of tone, that's not just a directorial thing. You can only do so much. Obviously I'm saying like there are things you can do with directorial that will change a script, but there's only so much you can do. You can't completely change it. You can steer it in a different direction, but you can't alter it drastically if it's going to be that. If what you're saying is there's a sort of really dark subject matter in a lighter film, there's only so much you can do to make that not the case. Yeah. And beyond a certain point, it's not going to work, and it's actually going to come across quite stilted. And maybe that's his best effort to kind of bring it in as close as he can, align them as close as he can. I think writing and directing will be good for him. Looking at the stuff he's done, Jurassic World, he had some input in the screenplay. I don't know if he wrote it by himself. Safety Not Guaranteed, somebody else wrote by the looks of it. I am pulling this from IMDb as I'm talking, so obviously I want to be sure I get these things right.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to have more control and he's going to have more backup on episode 9 as well. Because the other thing to bear in mind is the Book of Henry. I don't imagine there's a story group for that, for instance.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Definitely not. Also, not for nothing, but child actors can be tricky to they're tricky properties to countenance, because sometimes child actors work really well, like Son of Rambo, and then sometimes they're the thing you remember from the movie in the weirdest kind of worst nostalgia way, like the kid from Jerry Maguire.
Well, one of these kids is Jacob Tremblay, who's already earning great accolades for some of his work in The Room.
Okay.
With Brie
Larson.
With Brie Larson.
I was going to say not that.
Yeah,
Room.
not that one.
Was he the one who was telling Lisa she was tearing him apart?
Yeah, and we threw spoons at him. It's at this point, I think it's definitely a gamble for Colin Trevorrow, because the knives are going to be out for this next production, and the first slip, I think, he's going to be blamed for. The first sign of a hiccup, and I just, from his perspective, I would be right now thinking, is there a way I can walk away from this and keep my dignity?
Yeah.
In a way that, Josh Trank didn't have that opportunity. He went amidst a blaze, didn't he?
And this is it,
a media blaze.
And I don't think that's the way forwards. I think if you've made a decision and you've made that decision so far in advance, you should own it, and you should stick to it, and you should stick to your guns. And you should at least try. And if you're going to fail fast as you can and adapt as quickly as you can. But you can't just abandon it every time things look grim, especially not for nothing, right? But if you put something out on the internet and it gets negativity and you give up, you don't belong on the internet, because that is the entire melting pot for that stuff is where the internet the internet is the best and the worst of people.
Yeah.
It is, for all our Commonwealth listeners, there's some tools, right? So there's.
Yeah, but when you're Disney Lucasfilm, the word failure is not allowed into your catalogue in any shape or form, and then they're going to be very, very scared to tread that line again.
Sorry, Indiana Jones 4.
And they're trying to learn from that, which is why we've got the situations we've had in the last couple of films.
Episode 1, 2, 3.
There's not failures, Steve. You just don't like them. That's different.
It wasn't Disney
There are
either.
critical failures. Budgetary, no.
No,
Mark,
they actually now
failures.
they're
Mark,
kind of
Yeah.
regaining fans.
If he walked, have you got a name you would pluck from the air?
No, well, Mike Quinn, who played Nien Nunb in The Force Awakens and Return of the Jedi, seemed to suggest this week that he felt Joe Johnston was waiting in the wings.
That name's still hanging in the sky, is it?
It's still there. Now, I don't know whether... So part of me still thinks that perhaps Ron Howard and Joe Johnston will have a relationship with Lucasfilm for future Star Wars projects. And Ron was just activated early because they needed him. But maybe they're already developing the 2020 standalone movie and beyond. And Joe Johnston would be a good fit for Boba Fett because he's had a part in creating that character way back in the day. So to me, that these things seem to make sense, that those directors are already around. Now, I think if there is a reaction to be had here, it might be that Lucasfilm are going too wide of the mark with the decisions they've made over the directors. You know, they brought Gareth in, they brought Ryan in, they brought Colin in because they saw these guys on their way up. It might be, we'll get them while they're cheap, but it also might be, let's get them and make them into
Megastars,
mega directors. Let's make them into Spielbergs, and for that, they need
very risky with such a big franchise.
This is my point. So now we've got to a point where Kathy's kind of seen that experiment fail repeatedly. Josh Trank had to be jettisoned. Gareth Edwards
needed his
handheld all the way through production. Ryan seems to be the exception to the rule.
Sorry, did you say why are we saying Gareth needs his handheld? That's incredibly condescending.
No, not necessarily. It was bringing in Tony.
Were you
Gilroy.
there, Paul?
Sorry,
were you there?
Were you there, Rob?
No, but what I'm saying is, I don't think that the guy.
Even he said he was accepting of the fact that Gilroy came in and helped co-write.
Yeah, but that's not holding your bloody hand. That's
what
helping.
is it then? Oh, that's the same thing when you're given. Of course it is. When you're given the flag on a project like that, and you're not able to carry the thing. Don't get me wrong. I love the product. I like the guy. But the fact is, he needed tandem assistance because the project was not going in the direction it was planned.
That's not the same as hand holding,
isn't it? When I cross the road, if I can't do it very well, if someone hold my hand and get me across the road, it's the same thing.
I think as a generic term, I think that's kind of the way this is perceived by many people. That Gareth did the heavy lifting. He took it.
Hand up, make you feel better.
He took it. He took it most of the way, and then Tony Gilroy had to come in and take it over the line to get a touchdown. And that's the only way.
Hand. Yeah, I'm good with that.
That is the only way of interpreting what happened there. Is that Gareth wasn't able to take. Now that doesn't mean Gareth is an incapable director or a failure in any way. In fact,
I actually want to see his original work, to be honest.
It shows how well suited Gareth Edwards is to the Lucasfilm structure, because they could say to him, this is what we need to deliver the project. And he said, yes, the project's more important than my investment in it. There is a valid perspective here that Lord and Miller went the other way. And they said, look, we're going to need to bring another creative mind into this.
And they were like,
and they said, no, we don't
need
that.
There's nothing wrong with what we've done, or something like that.
Yeah, this is how we perceive what we were hired to do. And they said, well, we want to bring a creative mind in to bring it back to what we expect. And they said, no, we'd rather go and turn it all over to you, and then you can do what you want with it. That's the way we can. That's a fair reading of the situation on Han Solo. But to get back to my original point, Kathy's seen several failures in a row. Is she confident enough in Colin Trevorrow now to say, well, you take 9, and as a writer-director, which is where we've seen it work, apparently, with Ryan being able to write his own product and produce his own product.
Yeah.
If she says to Colin, well, you do this, is he going to be... This is what I don't think he could survive right now. But when you get to the last 80%, she says, no, Joe Johnston's coming on to help you get this thing to the finish line. Is he going to be able to say, yes, do that, or is he going to walk? And either way, right now, I see that being disastrous for Colin Trevorrow. Even if he steps up and does what Gareth Edwards done and say the project's more important than me, and if I need someone to help me take it the last 20% of the way, then I'll do it. Let's work together and get this done. That will look bad for him in the media. It will just be spun that way. Only people will only see the negative. They won't say, yeah, he's been able to get out of his own way to deliver the project. Or if he says, no, I don't need that assistance in delivering the film, I'm going to do the Lord and Miller thing and walk. That looks bad for him. Unless he takes on episode 9 and he knocks it out of the park, I don't see it being a positive reception. And to me right now, I just think Star Wars for Colin Trevorrow is a hot potato. And in terms of securing his long-term success in Hollywood, he might do well to distance himself from it now.
Yep.
And not run the risk of going down the Josh Trank route, because he's not going to go down the Lord and Miller route where they just say, fair enough, it's just one of many jobs we're going to go, because you're only successful as your last product, and his last product was the Book of Henry, and that's a disaster.
It might not be his last product by the time episode 9 comes out.
He's got another Jurassic movie.
Yeah.
So that, that might be that might enter into the top 3 highest grossing movies of all time, and he might become one of the most profitable directors in history. And that might,
he might.
It might make all of this a moot point.
But he won't get there by walking away.
That in itself is a moot point, Mark, because Steve's favourite film is still way up there, but a lot of people now say it's a forgotten piece of material.
Yeah, but that's more of an exception than the rule. For Avatar, that had a number of we've spoken about the number of conditions that made that film the success it was. It wasn't just about the film. There was a number of other elements in there, right? The technology at the time that brought in the audiences.
Multiple releases.
Multiple releases, but here we've got a director that's got one shot at making this has to be the best Star Wars movie of the bunch.
It is. He has got the worst position, as well. Frankly, yeah, he's the last goalpost. So,
what he also doesn't want to become is he doesn't want to become the Richard Marquand of the new Star Wars trilogies, which is just this empty suit on set that just does what he's asked to do by the producers. Do you see what I mean? Return the Jedi. It seemed to be widely accepted that Richard Marquand was just Lucas.
It was a name on a directing credit.
Just his mouthpiece.
I don't think that's going to happen this time around, just because the company's set up differently now. I don't think that they don't have that person anymore who's going to be kind of speaking through the director. I think, Kathleen is in charge of the whole Lucasfilm, the whole overall thing, but I don't think she intervenes unless things are really, I think this Alden thing with the Han Solo movie, if these sort of, these kind of rumblings are true, I think the reason she intervened was just because it had gone so far away from what they were kind of envisaging. And I think had she sort of pulled a few dailies and gone, oh no, this seems fine, we would never have even heard about it. It's the fact that it was just so far removed from where they were going in their heads, that's why it's even news. I think even if Lord Miller had just turned around and said, okay, yeah, we'll change direction, it would have been a non-story within a couple of days. And actually it almost felt like one after about a week. Once Ron Howard came on board, everybody sort of went, oh, okay.
Yeah, there were such decisive moves made at that point. They'd obviously calculated that well in advance. I can't see them wanting to court that sort of thing again, though.
No,
I absolutely can't.
Nor do I. I'm personally of the opinion that he should stick with it. They should stick with him. And the worst thing they can do is kowtow to the people who are always going to find something to have grievance over. I think that's the worst thing you can do in the sort of in the internet-based culture in which we now find ourselves. That is the worst thing you can do, is kowtow to this sort of thing, because you never see the end of it. Because as soon as those people sense kind of, for lack of a better expression, weakness, they will just pick at it, and then that movie will just it will end up just a shell of what it originally set out to be.
Just sounds to me like both Trevorrow and Lucasfilm are stuck between a rock and a hard place at this point.
Big time.
I think they're aligned pretty well. I think the fact that Trevorrow was able to, say to Rian Johnson, could you film a little bit for me in episode 8, suggests that he's bang on. He's well on board for it. He's already got ideas about where he wants to take it.
Yeah, but that could have happened. That would have happened with any director. That's not a Trevorrow mark, is it?
Well, that's the point, though, isn't it? The fact that he's planning so far ahead and thinking so far ahead. If you bring in a new director suddenly, they don't have as much time. But
if you got the job, you would have been planning equally ahead.
No, but my point is, Paul, time has passed since he got the job, right? Quite a lot of time. So that person who comes in and replaces him in that scenario doesn't have as much time to think about that stuff. Because actually, principal photography, I don't know when it begins, but I can't imagine it's
January.
Probably January, Feb, yeah.
Yeah, so they've got 6 months to have a think about what they want to do. They've got to catch up with what the story group's doing with episode 8. They've got to catch up with everything else. Colin Trevorrow's been immersed in that stuff, I would imagine, to a degree. I mean, as much as he wants to, probably. He can sort of immerse himself to his heart's content, I'm sure. I
mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they've had meetings anyway. Okay, We've heard this. How do you feel? Oh, I want to go for it. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I think it's entirely possible. I just think that the key thing, I think, is absolutely to stick with it.
Well, I'm sure we'll see soon enough, because if they're going to make moves with the schedules, it would provide Colin Trevorrow with an easy out. If they push 9 back, he might be able to suggest that the conflict in scheduling gives him a way to walk.
Depends what happens with Han Solo then, doesn't it, really?
Yeah. It could be an opportunity to give him a chance to walk away from it and not take such a high-profile risk this time round. And also for Lucasfilm, they don't have to take a risk if they can bring in somebody they've got more confidence in. Not that I'm suggesting they have any less confidence in Trevorrow than they have in Rian Johnson.
Yeah.
But we will certainly see very, very soon how this plays out, I think. All right, let's wrap this one up then. I know, Steve, you want to get away, don't you?
Got my bird sort out.
He's got a pigeon to save.
He's got a pigeon to save. Mouth to beak resuscitation, right. Okay, everyone, thanks for joining us again this week for Talk Star Wars. Don't forget you can leave us a 5-star review in iTunes and take advantage of our Ron Burgundy guarantee, which means whatever you write in there, as long as it's clean, one of us will read. So if you want to promote something like a blog or a podcast, that's the place to do it. And if you want to send us in a question, either written or emailing us an MP3 as a voicemail, you can do that by sending us an email to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on one of our many social platforms, such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram and more. And with that in mind, guys, where can people find you between episodes?
You can find me on Wild About Nature on Twitter and YouTube. Thank you very much.
That was quick, sorry. You'll find me on moviescorenews.com, and you'll find me on Twitter at Moviescore News, and you'll find me on Facebook at Moviescore News, and you'll find me on Talk Star Wars because I prop Marc up.
Rob?
Oh, how do I follow that one? You can find me on Twitter.
I left one off.
Did you?
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook at Hindsight Script. You can find us on Twitter at Hindsight the Novel now.
Ooh, okay. Very nice.
But the Twitter handle is still Hindsight Script. It's just the name has changed to Hindsight the Novel. But you'll find us by searching either. I'm not cutting anything. Rob, where can people find you, mate?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rob Wade Vision, and you can find everything else I do that's not Talk Star Wars at emotionally14.com or emotionally14 on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, pretty much everywhere you can Google, really.
Splendid stuff. You find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm on Twitter at talkstarwars. Stick around for the promo for the Commonwealth. They're good people. You should check out their shows, and we will see you again next week.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Turtles.
Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Find us at StarWarsCommonwealth.com alongside
the Tumbling Saber Podcast,
the Generation X-Wing Podcast,
the TSW Roundtable,
the Skyhoppers Podcast,
and the Nerd Room Podcast.
Head to StarWarsCommonwealth.com. Take your first steps to a larger world.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap.
Let's talk about Loot Crate. Are you on a quest for epic gear, housewares and collectibles? Loot Crate offers an epic range of pop culture items for less than $20 per month. Whether you're shopping for the geek in your life or you are that geek, Loot Crate is the best surprise you know is coming. Every month there's a different theme and new and exclusive items that you can only get with Loot Crate. Treat yourself every month or give the gift of geeking out to a friend or a loved one. You have until the 19th at 9 PM Pacific to subscribe and receive that month's crate, and when the cut-off happens, that's it, it's over. Make sure to head to lootcrate.com/Talk Star Wars and enter the code Talk Star Wars and save $3 off your new subscription today.